In the southern oceans of Dominia Prime lay a continent of great kingdoms. Far from the war between Urza and Mishra, the lands of Sarpadia prospered. But as the climate changed, resources dwindled and empires crumbled. Hideous new species arose in the forests and the seas, forcing the Sarpadians to fight for their very survival. Recruit these toughened warriors and vicious predators for your duels, but beware, lest you fare no better than the fallen empires.
Today,
Yes.
black. And that means Thrulls! But it also means the Ebon Hand, which is also cool.
Yes.
So yeah, I guess let's breathe and take a moment to approach this with a little bit of clarity. The narrative of the conflict here, as we will see, is that the Ebon Hand is a creepy cult,
Yeah.
more or less.
Pretty much.
And they create a race of servants who are to be sacrificed at their leisure. And that ends up not going so well for them. Let's start with Ebon Hand today, because the Thrulls are they're my favorites. I think they're your favorites
they're
too.
we want to end on Thrulls, so
Yeah.
we're going to start with the Order of the Ebon Hand.
Yeah, and I think we'll probably also mess up the order. Usually we've been doing the two civilizations, and then the cards don't really fit into either, but I really want to save Thrulls for last, so let's do that. Let's spoil ourselves.
Yes.
But,
little treat.
Yeah, it's a treat. So, the Ebon Hand themselves have the Initiates and the Order themselves. Both are clerics, and they're both commons. And then we have the one additional creature, the Ebon Praetor, who we'll get into in a bit. But let's start by looking at the Initiates of the Ebon Hand, yeah?
Yes. Yeah, let's
because,
check them out first.
I mean, they're Initiates.
Yeah,
Come on, it only makes sense.
They have shown up, they have expressed an interest in joining the creepy cult. So that's how I imagine these guys. They're signing up, maybe they have to go through some sort of ritual, or they have to prove themselves in some way before they can become official members of the order.
Yeah. I think it's most interesting to start with the Liz Danforth one. Maybe not the most interesting, just the most clear because of the flavor text, which is, Ebon leaders soon realized that non-human races often had special talents that could be exploited. Yeah. I love the art. It's just...
The art on this one is really fun.
It's got so much character.
Can we zoom in on that a little
Yeah,
bit?
absolutely.
Yeah, this one is very fun. So earlier on, we had seen some of these sort of caricature-esque depictions of the Ebon Hand on the white side of things.
Oh, Fairlight Priest, right?
Yeah. These, though, I mean, they kind of just look like this. Like, I don't know exactly what, the flavor implies that these are non-humans. I don't know exactly what they are.
Yeah.
But
and that's fun.
They have some creepy little claws. They've got this one front and center just has this huge bulging eye that's really fun.
And I feel like they're intentionally supposed to be, they're hamming it up.
Yeah.
Right? Because look at the ones around them. It's very much like a church choir. The vibe of the rest of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an unholy church, but that's what it is.
It's still a church.
But this one in front is like,
this one,
we're the spooky place.
They're really leaning into the whole creepy cult thing.
Yeah.
They're into that.
I love that one.
And then some of them, it looks like, the one in the front has this, and a few others that I can see in the back. I recently realized, or learned that thing is referred to as a chain of office.
Oh.
In a lot of different depictions of mostly Western culture, but that sort of thing of like having a gold chain of links and things like
with
that.
With a big gem plates almost,
is called a chain of office. And so I don't know if that's significant to their... Maybe this is significant to them being initiates, so like they're all kind of wearing the same sort of hood outfit kind of thing. It looks like there's some kind of altar in the background. There's something on fire.
Yeah.
Maybe that's some kind of sacrificial altar. Maybe that's where they burn the Thrulls. I don't know.
But given they're all facing forward, I assumed what like the actual like pulpit or equivalent that they're facing is probably closer to the...
Yeah, so I'm not sure what's going on back there. There's some kind of little offering altar, but I love the faces on these creatures.
I like that this one here really does. I think this one here on the center or lower right is what makes me think church choir
Yeah.
because it's just such a demure, like, respectful expression.
Well, and then they're also like holding their little claws in
Yeah.
this kind of
They
prayer format.
kind of, but it's like, oh yeah, but it's
the other one in the front is also doing that.
yeah. But and this one has these little tuskies.
Yeah.
And none of the others have that. So though they do have the same skin tone, I feel like it's supposed to be just a variety of critter types.
Yeah.
Like some orcs, some goblins, some
Yeah,
whatevers.
like this one back here. Mm-hmm. This one kind of like he kind of reminds
That's
me
at
of,
least partly French bulldog.
Yeah, I was gonna say he looks like a French bulldog.
Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah. And I like that for him.
Yeah.
Like
But a little more pug with the eyes.
yeah, a little more pug, and then the one next to him, like very drawn face.
Oh, yeah.
You know, just so we have some nice variety here in the
Big
kind
eyes.
of critters
Yeah.
that these are. But yeah, I love the sentiment here. That I get the feeling that like, hey, you know, all these non-humans, they might not be welcome elsewhere.
Yeah.
You're welcome here. Like, we're going to exploit you,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you are welcome here, and we value the things that make you different.
That is funny, but it is, like, it's earnestly good world
Yeah.
building in how it sets us apart from the Ications,
Mm-hmm.
who are presented in more of the traditional, oh yeah, those are the heroes, right?
Yeah.
They're the humans, they're relatable, but they're also religious fanatics. And hey,
Yeah.
what do you know? They're exploiting other races.
Yeah.
So it kind of highlights that that's the thing going on over there.
Yes. Let's look at Kaya Folios. That one's really interesting. I love this.
Yeah, it's
depiction.
beautiful.
So yeah, totally different mood. We have this gorgeous kind of high priestess almost with her 2 ritual daggers, and then she's got some text behind her, like some sort of runic.
Oh, do you think that's
looking.
text? It's always looked like, well, it looks like a reverse pumpkin jack-o'-lantern to me. But
Oh no, I meant like right here, the silver. She has these
Oh,
2
I'm sorry, yeah.
halos of.
I'm
like-
looking through
Okay.
the webcam
Yeah,
here.
no,
so I'm
that's-
Gotcha.
That's for sure. I see what you mean with like the
Yeah.
big. This is almost like a mouth or something. Like you have the 2 points
Yeah.
here for the eyes, and then the.
I assume it's like a backdrop with some symbology.
No,
on
she
it.
has these like
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
silver halos around her head.
And they create a nice flow with the drape of her
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
robe.
Yeah. Yeah, she has a very different outfit from the other initiates, which is
Yeah.
quite cool. I really like this fit.
This is one of the benefits of what they did for just such a short time where they had the multiple artists, but they didn't have a common design. Sometimes that ends up weird. Sometimes it ends up cool. And I like it generally in what they do with the Ebon Hand, both the initiates and the order itself.
Yeah, this one, the flavor text says many initiates sacrificed a hand to become full members of the order.
Yeah. That is super culty.
Yeah.
That's great world building too, but it's
Yes.
ironic that there is a different card that shows someone who has sacrificed a hand, but it's not this one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, not this one. I don't know if she is the one doing the sacrificing, or
Oh,
perhaps
yeah, I guess
you know,
that's-
you're offering her, because she feels to me more like a priestess. Like
Yeah.
she doesn't read to me like the initiate, and she's got her 2 ritual daggers, so I kind of feel like maybe you go up to her,
Yeah.
you offer up your hand.
And that's a little bit of a flavor failure
Yeah.
to be portraying someone who isn't the initiate on the initiate's card. But I mean,
Yeah.
they only had 2 cards depicting
Yeah.
Ebon Hand members, and it is probably better if they just get a broader base of them depicted on the card. So I like that. I like that view of
And
this.
I mean, this is completely just my projection of what
yeah.
I'm interpreting this as. So she could very well be the initiate about to sacrifice her own hand.
Yeah. I assume they also do, like, field work. So I guess I've always assumed this is an Ebon Hand member going out and doing whatever they do to oppress the locals, or, you know...
It's like, okay, who has...
Maybe she's just chopping sprigs off of some plants, you know? Maybe
who's
she's a
assigned
neurologist.
to local oppression today?
Yeah.
Who's going to be doing herbology? We need
Yeah,
somebody to
right.
chop up this basil.
And
Like,
she could be doing either one.
yeah.
All right. It's worth talking about the actual mechanic, too. Spend 1 mana of any color to create a black mana. So you can just filter your mana into black, but if more than 3 mana is spent that way in 1 turn, you sacrifice the initiates. And that is, we foreshadowed this with the Fairlight Priest in white, which is it was either an uncommon 3 or an uncommon 1 in that case, and it's a common here, which is interesting, but it is a mirror. It's the same effect. And I think it joins with the fact that all of the Ebon Hand creature cards are clerics to say this is really a religious order, as opposed to the Acacians, who are a full civilization, and they have priests among them.
Yeah.
But they have a bunch of other roles and stuff. But no, all of the Ebon Hand are clerics, and this is a very spellcasting oriented thing.
Yeah.
And then the last one is one of the cards with the art that just was most arresting to me when I was getting into Magic. Whoa.
Yeah, this is very striking.
Yeah.
So this one is illustrated by Heather Hudson, and yeah, it depicts presumably an initiate showing you their chest, and there's just this big cyclopean eye where their pecs should be. And the flavor text for this says, "We are no longer nature's children, but her masters," and this is credited to Oath of the Ebon Hand.
Yeah. I haven't processed that it's that attribution, that it's from the Oath of the Ebon Hand, because it seems like a nice, clear statement of purpose. It's a good vision statement for a creepy order. It tells us more. It just helps build out the, who this is. They're a monastic cult.
Yes.
Who clearly worship something pretty creepy and evil.
Yeah, they're into some creepy stuff.
But the fact that it's part of their oath, which I presume is what you have to recite to join, that's interesting. That's a statement of purpose that everyone has to reiterate.
Yeah, I'm so curious about this one. So like, look at this one is very eye-catching. But
yes, I see what you did there.
When I look at this, my first thought is like, okay, did he gain this attribute via his involvement with the cult, or did he show up and he's like, hey, this is what I bring to the table? You know?
I have never wondered that myself. I always assume this is what you get for joining.
Okay, I mean,
this is your
no
introductory gift.
Yeah, there's no way to know. Yeah, maybe this is your introductory member's gift.
Yeah. Maybe it's what the recruiter does. Like, look at this. You want one of these?
You too could have this. All you have to do is take this oath and give us your hand.
Yeah. It's interesting that this face wrap and kind of turban is kind of a Middle Eastern aesthetic.
It is kind
and that
of
doesn't show
of
up
that.
anywhere else in this set. But like Magic actually had a pretty significant Middle Eastern influence in the beginning, and that they had like Mahamoti Jinn was in the first set. The first expansion is Arabian Nights. So it kind of continues that through line.
Yeah, that's it's interesting to me that that's not really repeated anywhere else here. It's kind of just a one-off in this one.
Yeah, that's another instance of there's clearly no overarching style guide.
Yeah.
For the set. So that is all of the initiates. And then let's move on to the Order of the Ebon Hand.
Yes.
Who mechanically we've essentially already looked at, because it is the exact mirror of the Order of Lightbur in white. And the Order of Lightbur has protection from black, these have protection from white. And that just reinforces that these two civilizations are really butting heads and are... That's probably an understatement. They're trying to murder each other.
Yeah, I think butting heads is...
Yeah, well, because the Fairlights split off from the Acacians because the rest of the Acacians aren't trying to murder hard enough.
I mean, I guess the Order of the Ebon Hand and the Order of Lightbur would kind of butt heads because they have pro-white and pro-black, so they wouldn't really do anything.
Yeah, they can't even
touch each other, so...
Ships of night.
Yeah. So yeah, mechanically, pretty much the same thing, just kind of a mirror image. This first one by Melissa Benson.
This is the one with the actual missing hand.
Yeah, so we're actually missing a hand.
Yeah, props to actually representing that on one of the cards.
It has been replaced with a sort of weapon.
Scythe?
Yeah, I'm trying to decide what to call this.
It's kind of. I always thought of it as a hook.
Yeah, it's kind of a hook.
It's also kind of like a church key for opening a bottle.
It's a bit like that. Yeah, so it's like probably
a
multi. It's a multi-tool.
It's a multi-tool. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been replaced with this somewhat menacing multi-tool. And this is like This is like a centaur.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. But, we already called back to, like, non-humans being welcome for their diverse attributes that can be exploited.
And this is one of very few big advantages to the time before the Grand Creature type update, where everything can have a race and a class.
Yeah.
They actually did give this knight in addition to cleric eventually, but they're able to have different arts depicting different races, different types of creatures doing the same thing, and it makes sense to me. That works.
Yeah, and I think it's fun, too, like, if you have a particular favorite, and you want, like, let's say you're playing these in a deck, or you have multiples in a deck, you could go the route to, like, have one of each art, or you could say, this is my favorite, I want all of mine to be this one. So it kind of, I don't know, it adds a little touch of personalization, I guess.
Yeah. The shield design is similar, at least in color, to the initiates with the knives.
Yes.
So
and it kind of calls back to the background on the Caiafolio initiate.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, that's the one. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very striking.
Yeah.
With the red and black elements here.
And the flavor text, a true follower of Turak took pride in achievement to the exclusion of other concerns.
Very mono-black sentiment.
Yeah, that's really not specific to the Fallen Empires in particular. That is just hyper black color pie.
Yeah. Greatness at any cost.
Yep. And that in itself, I guess, helps reinforce that's what the Ebon Hand's all about.
That's who they are.
Then we have a Christopher Rush art for this one.
Yeah, this one's really interesting. Just totally different aesthetically.
Yep.
It's more of a foot soldier with a great sword. What's an enchanted, cursed great sword of some kind.
I mean, it's approaching like Monster Hunter levels of unwieldy. So which to me, I've always assumed that means, oh yeah, she's using magic to swing it around. So that's...
But yeah, I mean, this'll clear an area. Like, I watched this video recently about the like swords of this size and magnitude in fantasy, and that yes, on the one hand it is kind of unwieldy, but like the idea behind having the sword with super long reach is that you are going to be able to defend an area just because you have such a far reach that like if you're able to wield this thing, like no one's going to be able to get super close to you without being at risk of getting sliced and diced a bit. The green stuff, though, definitely implies there's some cursed energy. There's something going on here. It's more than just a sword. I love their commitment to the, like, solid black. I can't tell if that's, like, the scabbard or actually the blade, but they're really committed to the aesthetic, which is cool.
Yeah.
And then their leg armor kind of almost reminds me of, like, something from the Hades game. Like, it has that sort of almost, like, Greco-Roman aesthetic to it. And then the little skulls,
I was thinking Mesoamerican, but yeah, I see what you mean, too.
I think it's probably just the skulls that are kind of making me think of, like, Hades, where they have all the little skull motifs around. But yeah, very different aesthetic from anything else we've seen associated with the Ebon Hand so far. This one, the flavor text says, there are intriguing similarities between the Order and Acacia's Lightbur religion, suggesting the two had a common origin.
Yeah. That's cool. The more I think about this magic-infused sword, the more I like the whole package of the initiates can convert your other mana into black mana. Then the Order of the Ebon Hand, that mana is then used to infuse the Order to make it as powerful as it needs to be to destroy whatever. So these might be relatively frail, normal humans or humanoids who are in the Order, but when they channel whatever dark powers of Turak or the Ebon Praetor or whatever that they're tapping into, they can really get powerful.
Yeah, and so like you're going to want to channel, if you're running if you're not running all swamps, you're going to want the initiates around to channel your mana into black so you can cast this double black creature and then pay for all these black abilities. Everything on this card requires black mana to activate.
And I know, like, literally you have the exact same abilities in the white cards between the Order of Lightbur and the Fairlight Priest, but that just doesn't feel as cool or fit together as well as this. Like, all of the Ebon Hand creatures are just these two cards, and you put them together, and that's the Ebon Hand. It's people channeling mana into black mana, and people using that black mana to be awesome.
Yeah.
That's neat. That's a good embodiment of a cult.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that absolutely fits.
And we have one last common art for Order.
Yes, this one by my boy Ron Spencer. Yep. Look at all those spikes.
Yeah.
I love this so much. Like, this has more of a... Again, totally different aesthetic from the others that we've looked at. This one almost looks more like it could fit in with the Razorkin from Duskmourn.
Yeah.
Like, he's got like a saw blade strapped to his arm for a shield.
Mm-hmm.
And then just this like butcher knife cleaver thing. This reminds me a lot of some of the weapons the orcs use in the Lord of the Rings Peter Jackson movie.
Yeah, where their swords are kind of
like they're
strangely
kind of
square
they're
edges.
Very angular.
Yeah.
Not really following a traditional sword shape.
Yep.
And then just covered in this like almost insectoid, like chitinous looking armor with just spikes everywhere, which I love that.
And we cannot tell. We see no skin. We see no face. We have no idea what this could be a human.
It's bipedal.
It's not a centaur.
It's
this
not
one's
a centaur.
But that's all we got.
That's it. Yeah, I can't see the face. I can't see anything identifying. I got nothing to go on.
Yep.
Oh, excuse me. But yeah, this is probably my favorite.
I think it's a nice touch the way these straps are connected to the shield. Mm-hmm. They're not really that symmetrical. They're kind of haphazard. It's same sense as like the orc design for everything in the Peter Jackson's adaptations. It's just like someone's gonna get this job done. They're pounding it out. They're not paying too close attention where it goes. Does it hold together? All right, let's go.
Yeah.
Which honestly is kind of at odds with a lot of what the flavor of most of the rest of these Ebon Hand cards, which sure they're evil, but they're thoughtful about it. I mean, they're kind of studying magic
kind of
and
thoughtful sort of evil.
This is more like, no, I'm going to channel. I'm focused not on understanding the channeling process. No, I'm just going to channel the hatred and the rage. Here we go. Let's go.
This one, the other one that we looked at, the one with the leg armor is kind of sitting thoughtfully with the sword. Like they're not in an action pose. We've got the centaur who's like mid-strike almost.
It feels about like might be regimented, disciplined. Yeah. This one does not feel.
This one is just here to do some destruction.
Yep.
And I don't think he's concerned with the philosophy.
Yep.
There, he's just ready to get some stuff done. This one says on the flavor text, dedicated to the principles of Turok, members of the Order of the Ebon Hand demonstrated their devotion with grisly rituals.
I believe that.
Yeah. Yeah, this one is selling that concept.
This is as much as we can show.
Yeah, we had to crop this heavily. We do have like the blood on the weapon, which is kind of, suggestive of what might be going on outside the borders of this picture. But we can't show that for standards reasons.
So that is the Ebon Hand, but there is another creature that's certainly related to them, and that is the Ebon Praetor.
Yes. This is such an interesting depiction.
I know, it's insane.
Yeah. I think the first time I saw this card, it was just kind of like, I had to just sit and think about it for a while. Like, what's going on
The
here?
white rabbit makes it feel like Alice in Wonderland, so that's like my first thing.
Also, the rabbit is so big.
Yeah.
Compared to the other figures.
Yeah.
So, like, the Praetor at the podium, it's tall.
Yep.
Large. Second biggest figure in this is the rabbit.
Yep.
And the pose is very like chocolate Easter bunny rabbit.
Yeah.
And then there's this blue creature and some kind of little demon.
Yeah, like the way they're posed here, it feels like the demon devil and the rabbit are holding the blue one prisoner.
Yeah.
And like is there for judgment. So I think I immediately leap to, this is the parallel with the Hand of Justice. So the white big creature is the Hand of Justice, so the black one is the Ebon Praetor, and there's a list which implies kind of the same thing. Like, this is the one who judges.
Yeah.
And it seems like they have brought a prisoner to be judged. So, but yeah, what is the blue creature? I don't know.
I want to know what the blue creature did to wrong these two. Like, do these two work for the Ebon Hand? Are they like the bailiffs? You know, did they like bring this creature forward? Or is this more like a civil dispute where like these two have brought the blue creature before the Ebon Praetor for judgment, like for some personal wrong?
Oh, like they're petitioning their ruler.
Like they're petitioning the ruler, like, we gotta do something about this degenerate. We're sick and tired of them.
They're
doing whatever.
They're preaching the words of Lightburr.
Yeah.
Down at the inn. We cannot have that.
We do not care for that at all. Territory. Yeah. And, you know, he's doing some writing in what very much looks like, we'll just call it red ink. And
but we can't skip over the background. There appears to be a lake of lava.
Also the background. Yes, we have this, what looks like a lake of lava. There's some buildings back there.
Yeah. But it also looks like it's in a cave. To me. Is that your perception as well?
I see that too.
I mean, it's possible that we are instead looking through stylized trees, but I think they're rocks. I think this is a cave.
Yeah, I get the sense that we're in a cave as well.
All right.
So, yeah, this is just an interesting area of this world that we have not really gotten to explore.
This feels like it's intended to be like the children's story version of the responsible parents within the Ebon Hand when they teach their children about their belief system.
This is
yeah, I mean, it feels like cutesied up.
Yeah,
kind of
a little bit.
I guess
I don't know. The rabbit just really throws me. Like, not this arrangement specifically, but it has this almost dreamlike quality of it.
Yeah.
There's this surrealness about this piece that it feels more like this is something that belongs on a tarot card. This is like
this is a dream Turok had woke up and started this religion.
Yeah, this is a symbol for something else. Like, this is not meant to be interpreted as an actual event happening so much as like the rabbit has its own symbolism. If we knew what the blue monster was, maybe that's more significant. The little demon, you know, the praetor standing in judgment. Now, what is the symbolism? I don't know.
Honestly, that feels right because, I mean, Randy Asplin Faith has a lot of art in this game, and it's not normally this crazy. I mean, it's not normally this, like, this doesn't fit. This doesn't add up, and that's not, I don't think that. I just glance at Randy Asplin Faith's other work real quick. No, the rest of things just kind of make sense in context. And this doesn't, which makes me think you're probably dead on that this is intended to be some sort of symbolism.
Yeah, like this feels more of a...
And we don't get to know it.
Yeah,
and
we don't get to know it, but it just has there's like something under the layer. I was like, I feel like if I stare at this long enough, like I'm going to have some kind of prophetic vision about what this means.
And I know the the Hand of Justice is much less obvious that it's in that vein. But that was my argument when we were looking at that too, is that the dice represent something. The scales, everything is really a symbolic portrait of something. And so
that one felt, aside from like the green skin, that one felt less surreal.
Yeah. Oh, it does. It definitely does.
But yeah, I could also very much see that.
Yeah, but because they're both sort of. Well, they're both avatars.
Yeah.
Their creature type is avatar in both cases. And they're kind of a representation of an ideal to their respective factions.
Yeah.
Before I move on from the art of this one, what is up with the actual Praetor's face, too? Like, this weird little swirl thing, which I've never understood, if it's like a trunk that's twisting around?
Like, can we...
You trying to make it even bigger?
Yeah, can we make it even bigger?
Oh, that's the hand!
Oh.
That's so anticlimactic now, right? Am I seeing that right? This is the hand reaching over and like pointing like this.
So? It's hard to say.
It is.
But yeah, the face looks kind of like...
Then it's like a horse skull face.
A horse's skull, something with a very elongated snoot.
Yeah, who's the Welsh...
Oh, I can't say the name. Skeleton. I don't know how to say the name, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I choose to believe this is reference to that. And doesn't that mean like it's gonna come and steal your beer if you don't sing it a song or something?
It steals something from you. I mean, I
I
like
believe
this
that the
thing,
Evan Praetor would steal something from you if you didn't sing it a song.
I believe that.
And I do not know the song.
I don't know what kind of song it wants to hear.
No.
I'm like, what songs can I sing on, like,
Yeah.
I was like, I haven't rehearsed anything.
So yeah, the Evan Praetor is wild. Mm-hmm. I keep feeling like I should be moving on, but there's so much to say about this.
There's so much to say. Also, I did want to point out, I think I caught a glimpse of it in some of the materials you prepped. Mm-hmm. There is a test card that we got to play with.
Yes.
It's at one of our events in Vegas. There it is.
Who's that Praetor?
Who's that Praetor? So we actually got to play this card. This was one of the playtest cards in the mystery boosters that we opened in Vegas. And as you can see in the art, all of the Praetors listed are depicted. They are all there, including Shuldred. Yep. And look, we can see the Evan Praetor. There he is with his weird little funnel podium and his list and his weird horse skull.
Yep. And I also, assuming that Thomas Ricci understood correctly what Randy Asplin Faith was depicting, then that's a vote for, that probably was a hand, a skeletal hand, and the Praetor itself is skeletal and has kind of a horse skull
His
face.
outfit is also very interesting because it's like
pilgrim, like
it's like old
American
timey like Spanish priests.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. You're right. You're right. You're right.
Hats and like the black and everything.
Yeah. Yep.
And
he has a tassel too.
Yes, he has a little tassel, which I think it's hard to say. I kind of see a tassel in the original. It looks like there's these two things dangling from the hat. They could be dangling from the hat, or they could be part of the robes. It's kind of difficult for me to say. But yeah, this is just a really fascinating piece of art. Like, I would love to get a print of this and hang it somewhere very conspicuous in my home, so I could just dwell on it.
Yeah, and I'm thinking this was the only Praetor before the in the entire game before the other Praetors before the Phyrexian Praetors were released.
I think that's true.
Pulling that up to validate it. Oh no. That's interesting. There's a Sanguine Praetor in, is that Dissension?
Interesting.
Well, and that's it.
Yeah, okay.
And then since the Phyrexians have moved into the Praetor space...
they have kind of monopolized
now everyone knows
niche.
That's what a Praetor is. And because the first two Praetors, in practice, not that powerful. And our poor Evan Praetor is a victim of the design of the early era of Magic when creatures just were not that good, especially expensive creatures. So it's a 5/5 with trample and first strike. That's pretty cool. Is it worth 6 mana? Probably not in the modern day, but that is fine. But if you don't sacrifice something to it every turn, it keeps getting -2/-2 counters, which fortunately, of course, you have a sheet of because you bought the comic or the Duelist and got a copy of all these insane counter values. But if you do sacrifice something, and if that something was a Thrull, it gets a +1/+0 counter also.
Yeah. So what you want to make sure you have your -2/-2 counters and your +1/+0 counters at the ready if you're playing this card.
It can never get tougher than 5, but it can get more powerful than 5. Trample and first strike, though, that is pretty neat. So, I mean, that's a cool effect, but it's so impractical. It's also interesting that it's not put on the -2/-2 counter unless it's separate actions. No matter what, you put a -2/-2 counter on there, and then you may sacrifice a creature to get rid of it.
Yes.
I think it's also worth observing that it was unclear at the time the game came out, or that Fallen Empires released, whether the Praetor was Turok. Like, there are all these cards that reference Turok, and I don't think any of the others reference the Evan Praetor. Maybe one does? So we have this big, beefy keystone creature.
Yeah.
And all these references to this leader who may or not be a present leader. You know, maybe this is one historical.
Yeah.
And we were just left wondering. And since then, it's been clarified repeatedly through comic, novel, and future cards that there is a separate entity named Praetor, and they even explicitly describe the relationship. They note in Modern Horizons 2, so pretty recently, the same hymns Turok sang to praise the Ebon Praetor would later be adapted to glorify Turok himself. Foreshadowing what we're about to look at.
Yes.
But, so Turok was this separate individual who worshipped the Praetor as a deity or something like that. And then, but again, that's not evident from the card.
Yeah.
So at the time this releases, it's just this kind of cool ambiguity.
Yeah.
And I think that's all of the creatures in the Ebon Hand faction. That leaves us with some spells.
Yes.
And the common is probably the most notable card from this set.
Yeah, possibly.
I'm pretty sure it is. Probably by a large margin. And it's...
Hymn to Turok.
Yeah. Man, it's mean.
It is.
It's so cool. In the early years of Magic, they really liked random discard. You know, Hypnotic Spectre. I'm pretty sure Mind Twist is random, right? Just
I think so.
A lot of that. And I'm really glad that they have realized, even if you're going to be mean enough to be playing discard, it's so much more interesting for someone to be making the decision about what that is. Either for you having to discard, you get to choose what's best for you to keep. And even if it's less pleasant to have your opponent choosing what they're going to make you discard with a duress or whatnot. But even then, at least you get to be thinking about what should they take, what do I not want them to take, and you just get to stay mentally engaged.
This
as
is
it
like
happens.
the hand of fate just reaches in and wrecks your hand.
Yeah.
no one gets to exercise any agency over it.
Yep. But just, double black, target player discards 2 cards at random.
Yeah.
That's it.
So the first one is illustrated by Susan Van Camp, and it's this is one of my favorite arts for this card.
This is my least favorite, but I still love it. I like all of them. They're so great.
So the flavor text for this says the eerie wailing hymn caused insanity even in hardened warriors. Which, I mean, that's kind of... when you're making your opponent randomly discard.
Yeah.
That is kind of the vibe. They hate that.
Oh, yeah.
They really hate that.
Like, they came here to fight. They did not expect to be insulted first.
Yeah, they did not expect for you to just, like, mentally pluck some thoughts out of their head. So we have this quite interesting group of chanters on the cliff face.
Yeah.
Which I just realized, it looks like they're standing on a pile of skulls or something.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Mount Rushmore of skulls. But like fanged skulls.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's kind of curious. And then there's this like mystical apparition of what looks like a wolf or fox behind them.
Yep, and this is Susan Van Camp's thing. We've seen it in the Elves. In a couple sets later, in Alliances, we have a lot more of it. There's one of the combat medics. But Susan Van Camp just loved that, the 3-wolf moon effect.
Basically,
Let's move on to my third favorite. And again, I love all of these. This is the Scott Kirshner art. And this is such a different setting. It looks like one of Santa's helpers meeting a member of the Ebon Hand in an inn.
It's a very interesting hat.
Yeah, and there's some other dark figures in the background. This has very much the Hobbits in Bree feel.
Very eerie.
Yeah. There's just a real seemingly power imbalance between this figure who's... I guess they're being very animated. They don't seem intimidated, but the other one is acting like a superior.
The cultist, presumably, is very nonplussed by whatever's happening.
Yeah.
Whereas this other person is like leaning over the table, doing some kind of dramatic...
They're either trying to convince him something or sell him something, or... Look what I can do for you! Let me into the cult! I want an eye on my chest!
And the other one's like...
I don't know.
Like, I'm just trying to enjoy a drink. This happens everywhere I go.
Everyone wants that dragon head dress.
I mean, I would. Look at it.
Is that a dragon? I've never conceived of it as that.
It's like... It has some dragon-shaped edges.
Yeah. I'm assuming the little twist in the back is a tail.
It's also curious that, like, this is a very dark picture overall, and the headdress appears to be illuminated almost.
Yeah, it does.
Like, it has this halo emanating from it, which is intriguing, even if we don't fully understand what that means. It kind of adds to the sense of power of the seated figure.
Yeah. As much as I'm making light of it, I really do like it, and it's.
Oh no, I do too.
It has a classic art piece feel to it.
Yeah.
And I don't have the art history vocabulary to place the time period or anything, but it's
I really like the tablecloth and how skewed it is on the floor. That's a very interesting touch.
Yeah. The flavor text doesn't seem to have anything to do with what's being depicted. Members of the order often played the hymn on instruments made from their victims' bones.
Oh.
That's cool
That's
and creepy
neat.
and evocative,
Yeah.
but I don't see the relation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say 2 good pieces of world building, but they don't really go together.
Yeah, not so much connected.
Yeah. Then I have a hard time. These 2 are my favorite. I don't know which is which. Like this, I don't know. This is great.
All right. This is a really good one. This is the Liz Danforth one. Flavor text on this says, Turok's power was such that his followers deified him after his death.
And I have read that wrong so many times. I always read it as defied him after his death. Like, what does that mean? I was seriously confused about that for years. Like, okay, I don't get it, but all right. But yeah, deified. Treated him like a god.
Yeah, so he's one of these characters that, even though we don't have a depiction of him in this set, we kind of, we get a lot of references to him, like the hymn to Turok. We get all these, there's a number of spots where he's referenced in flavor text or on a card like this. And we don't get to see who Turok is yet. That comes many years later.
Yeah.
But yeah, he apparently, as we come to find out, is a figure who followed or worshipped the Ebon Praetor, as we come to find out in the future.
Yeah.
And upon his death, his creepy cult decides, oh, we're going to elevate him to like god status. So now we're singing hymns to him.
Yeah.
And this is a really cool one, how they're gathered around in this circle. We're looking at them from the top down.
Which is a really unusual perspective.
Yeah. And they're gathered around this, like, floor tile thing that kind of looks like the world. It's that's what it's evocative to me of. It's like we have this globe sort of thing in the middle. The colors in this one are a lot brighter. Like, no one's wearing black. There's no...
Yeah.
This looks a lot less cult-like.
Yeah.
In some ways.
Yeah. We know better, but...
Yeah.
That's how they get you into the cult.
How they get you
they make it look like a yoga retreat.
See? It's it's a health retreat.
Yeah. That's what they showed up for.
You're going to feel so refreshed.
Yeah.
Also, we need your hand.
but so it does look like the tile, but then there's these little waves of what look like magical bubbles / power that communicates to me, something magical is happening there.
Like there's a gathering,
and that's
of
an important element
yes.
to it.
Agreed.
Yeah, that makes it look like a magic card in particular. Yeah, that's cool.
That's how we know it's magic and not just a yoga retreat.
And yeah, as usual, I'm just a big Quentin Hoover stan. I love Quentin Hoover. And so this is my favorite because of that. This triggers an association with who's the big creepy owl in The Secret of Nim?
Oh, I don't know the name.
But that,
yeah.
Okay. And the hands, I mean, I get that they're supposed to be gnarled human hands, but there's just something about
they're
that.
Very claw-like. Like, I can see the bird.
They're so exaggerated.
Connections there.
Yeah. And it's just this swelling of magic coming from this character, and you can just kind of feel the wind blowing this cloak around.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
That's a very cool... There's something about wearing a cloak that just makes you feel... I went to the Renaissance Festival this weekend where I was wearing a cloak all day, and it was pretty cool. I was like, I want to do this more often. I
realized it's going to be Chicago in February again for this next MagicCon, and I need a cloak for my cosplay outfit.
I think you do.
Yeah, so I'm going to see if I can get that taken care of in the next couple months.
Yeah, there's just something about putting on a cloak that makes you feel a little more powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is cool. This one, the flavor text says, knowing the hymn's power, the followers of Lightbur carefully guarded their pillaged transcriptions. So does that implying that they pillaged transcriptions from the Ebon Hand?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the Order of Lightbur specifically, not the occasions in general, but the Order of Lightbur is always out there skirmishing and fighting with the Ebon Hand.
Because their mission statement is like, yeah, we want to help the occasions, but also mainly, we want to squash the Ebon Hand.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I imagine then they take everything they find that the naughty heretics were using, and they take it back and guard it zealously, and I don't know what they do with it, but that's I think that's the idea. That's it for the commons, and then there are a few more uncommons. So this is the last of the color hosers we'll talk about. We've touched on every color in this set has a card to hose each of its enemy colors, and for black and white, the Order of the Ebon Hands are commons. So the Order of the Ebon Hand and the Order of Lightbur are the commons which oppose each other and hose black and white. And those are the only commons that are part of these cycles. But Turok's Chant is the remainder here. That's our green color hoser. This is an uncommon here on Scryfall, so that's an uncommon 3. And Richard Kane Ferguson art, as usual, absolutely beautiful. This card doesn't stick with me as much of his others in the set, but that's just because it's such a weird niche card.
It is a bit. So this is an enchantment. During your upkeep, you pay black or you sacrifice Turok's Chant, bury it. Whenever a player puts a forest into play, Turok's Chant deals 3 damage to him or her unless that player puts a -1/1 counter on a creature they control. I should play this against you.
Yeah, that'd be pretty effective.
So yeah, very niche, just really hating on green specifically.
Yeah.
Which, -1/1 counter might not sound like a lot. But if you're
relying on Arbor Elf and Llanowar Elves to do your thing,
maybe it is.
Be pretty effective.
Yeah. So, this is an interesting one. I really like the illustration for this. You have this figure who's like breathing, or I feel more like it's breathing out than it is inhaling.
I mean, if I didn't know what the rest of the card was, I would say this is a figure breathing life into things.
Yeah.
Maybe she's inhaling death. Maybe she's doing the...
Because you also have this hand that's sort of like
things
reaching up from the bottom.
Yeah.
I'm like, is that her hand?
I think so.
Okay.
It looks like her hand to me, and like she's aiming this magic with that.
Yeah, this is... I love all of the kind of abstract shapes that are hidden in these different colors. This is another one that feels very dreamy, where like you have some things that are like kind of snake shaped, kind of water shaped, but nothing's real defined.
Yeah. And this creates just a mini theme with the hymn to Turok, that there are these magical songs.
Yeah.
And
which is a really cool concept.
It is.
I like the idea of them using like chants and song for their magic.
Yeah, because that is really a fundamental part of a lot of magic and fiction.
Yeah.
But it's a card game. It's hard to represent music in a card game, but just this is one way to do it.
Yeah.
And it's certainly not the only time. As a distant melody is the blue creature draw spell. There are a few other Song of Totentaunts, I think, in Wilds of Eldraine.
Yeah.
So music references come up occasionally, but it's pretty unusual, and it's a nice sub-theme artistically just here within this set, which they reference then with Turok's Canticle in Modern Horizons 2. But
Can you imagine that there's just like a whole suite of Turok themes?
Turok's Symphony.
Yeah, Turok's Symphony.
Yeah.
Turok's Aria.
Turok Symphony is just the name of an archenemy deck, right?
Yeah. Requiem for Turok. Like, we could go on, but
But other than the name, which I'm a fan of, as for the reasons I'm stating, this doesn't really fit in with the rest of the set very well. But that's been true with all of these color hosers. They're just a part of Magic's core identity at the time that they really wanted to reinforce, I guess.
They're like, we have to have these color hosers.
You have to be able to hose the enemy colors. It's just what we do here.
Part of the game.
Yep. Let's, I guess, stay with Turok's items and touch on Turok's Gate, which is Sander Everingham, who was the artistic director. So this is one of the
There it is.
Is this the only one she
This is
took
so
for herself in this
cool.
set? Let me see real quick. No, she also did one of the Night Soils and one of the Tidal Flats. But she only did 3 pieces herself, despite art directing it, and Turok's Gate is one of them.
Love that she picked Sultai. We got a blue,
Nice.
a green, and a black.
Yeah.
So, love that. This is so cool. Every time I look at this, I can only see one thing. And you kind of have to look at it upside down to see this. But this looks like a beetle.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you can see the beetle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
good. So yeah, there's this entry point. I don't know if this is a river of blood or what this is, what that's going into, but yeah, we have this entry point in a wall that looks like a beetle's jaws.
Yeah.
And you can see like the wings spread out from the thorax. And then above, like, just lovely depiction of insectoid motifs, because I love how you have the darker colored elytra, and then beneath that is where the actual wings are poking out.
I don't know the term you just used.
Okay,
Is that
so
like the underwings?
so the elytra are the hardened overwing.
Oh, okay.
So like when you're looking at a beetle, it's not in flight. That's what you would see on the back.
Right,
And then when
okay.
they spread those out and their actual wings unfold,
Okay.
then like that's what it would look like above that, where you've got like the translucent wings sticking out up here. Like those would be the actual wings.
Okay.
And then you can kind of see the eyes here.
Yeah.
There's like little eyes.
I think they even look like compound
They
eyes.
look a bit like compound eyes.
And that I had not
Yeah.
noticed until we were looking at this zoom.
Yeah, so this is really cool. I mean, like, obviously I would go into this gate not knowing what's on the other side of it, but I would just like, I would need to know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would get down there and crawl into the gate, and I might regret it, but anyway, this is a enchantment that enchants a land.
And that is a really peculiar thing to do, because
Yeah.
usually we only see that, even at this early in the game, when you're making more mana. But that's not what this does.
Yeah, so you enchant a land that you control, and then you sacrifice a thrall to put 3 time counters on the gate. During your upkeep, you remove a time counter from the gate. And then when there are no time counters on Turok's Gate, you bury it.
So this isn't going to get a chance to do anything unless... Oh, is that true? I take it back. You can use this the turn it comes into play.
Yeah, so when it comes in, you pay 0, tap land target, or tap land...
Tap the enchanted land.
You tap the enchanted land. And all attacking creatures you control get +2/-1 until end of turn.
Yeah, all attacking creatures. So
Yeah.
it's only on attacks.
Yeah.
It's like Tidal Flats that only works in these specific circumstances
Yeah.
when you are blocking. So this is very narrow, but it's weird and interesting. I mean, I guess it's probably just bad because we compare it to just your average run-of-the-mill Anthem that we have nowadays. It's like
Yeah.
3 mana to give your team 1/1. Full stop. This dies if you don't
Yeah.
keep sacrificing things to it, and it subtracts toughness from your team if you use it. You can't be playing X1s and use this profitably.
No.
But as I have tried to say to myself out loud many times in this series, we're not here to judge whether these things are good. We're here to judge whether they're cool. This is awesome.
It is awesome. It's awesome for a number of reasons. I also think that, like, flavor-wise, it makes sense that, you know, black magic is all about exchanging. You can have anything you want for a price.
Ambition at any cost.
So,
but
yeah,
there's
you
a
can get
cost.
+2
Yeah.
at the expense of 1 toughness. And I think that is very flavorful and
Yeah.
absolutely fits with what we've learned about the Ebon Hand.
Yeah. And we also have the sacrifice theme, which is both part of just Black's color identity and magic, but also the Ebon Hand is the creepy cult.
Yeah.
And as we're going to focus more on shortly, they created an entire race of being, the Thrulls, for the purpose of sacrificing.
Yeah, and this is specific. It's not sack a creature. This is sacrifice a thrall, which gets you 3 time counters. So 1 thrall gets you 3 more turns of this.
Yep.
But, yeah, they are purely there kind of as fodder for these rituals.
Yeah. And that says what you need to say about the Ebon Hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, they may be kind of creepy cool, but also they're like evil. Like, don't idolize them.
Like, just be realistic about what they're doing.
Yeah. And finally, what is our last one? It is a sorcery.
Yes.
Our last one being our last non-Thrall card. And it is Soul Exchange.
This is a really cool one. So this one is illustrated by Anthony Waters. It's a sorcery. It says sacrifice a creature, but remove it from the game instead of putting it in your graveyard, so exile it. And then you take a creature from your graveyard, and you put it directly into play as though it were just summoned. And you put a 2/2 counter, a +2/2 counter, so get out your little counter sheet again.
Yep.
On the creature if the sacrificed creature was a Thrall.
So yeah, this is another one that ties the room together real nicely, because it's the Ebon Hand who are generally sacrificing the Thralls for value.
Yes.
So they're pretty clearly, to me, the depiction in the art here as an Ebon Hand cultist performing this ritual.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's I presume they've already sacrificed a Thrall and he's pouring the blood from the Thrall onto this thing.
That's my assumption, because you have up in the corner... That's what I...
Oh, that's the dead Thrall. You're right.
So they've already been sacrificed, and now this weird, like... I don't know what kind of creature this is.
I never have either until right now when we've been looking at all these in higher resolution. That looks like the Praetor, the Ebon Praetor.
Is that the Ebon Praetor or something
I don't know if that's the
similar
intent,
to it?
but look at the long...
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. This looks perhaps a little bit more lizard-like rather than a pure skull, but I don't know. It could be. It could be. Maybe the Ebon Praetor is something that they have to exhume occasionally and press back into service.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it looks like this one is offering up the blood or whatever it has extracted from the Thrall. This is kind of... You know, we've had other mechanics. Most of the time, spells that want you to sack a creature don't care about what kind of creature it is. There are some cases where that's relevant. In this set, you know, you get kind of a bonus. So, like, this one doesn't require you to sack a Thrall. You just get a little something extra if you sacked a Thrall.
We've been approaching the set largely in that the set has the big typal theme.
Yeah.
Right? And we haven't seen that much in the Ebon Hand within themselves. They only really have a creature type matters theme when it comes to sacrificing Thralls.
Yeah.
Sacrifice the other thing.
Yes. Which, yeah, like, they've been engineered, I guess, to be, like, the ultimate sacrifice.
Yep.
So when you sacrifice a Thrall, you get more back than if you just sacrificed, like, another initiate.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's curious what's going on here as far as, like, the green goo tanks.
Yeah. Yeah, the art style is somewhat impressionistic. You know, the details are intentionally a little bit hazy, and so that looks sort of like it's connected by some kind of hoses or something. Or maybe that's just the shape and color of the floor, or I mean, it's hard to say.
Yeah, it looks like tubes to me. Like, I get the sense that it's like some kind of tubing connecting these green jars, which presumably have some kind of life-sustaining fluid inside.
Yeah, could be.
And then you have this...
Well, it wouldn't be life-sustaining because you take a dead creature and resurrect it.
Yeah, or maybe it's like a stasis thing. Like maybe it prevents decay or something to keep this creature from just being unviable for resurrection. Because the like flavor-wise, the idea here is that we're going to resurrect something out of the graveyard, put it back into play.
Yeah.
And then it gets a little bit stronger if you sacrificed a Thrall.
Yeah.
Maybe Thralls have like really iron-rich blood or something.
Could be.
I'm just like, why would it be better to sack a Thrall?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on with them biologically?
I don't know. Before we move on to the Thralls themselves, though, let's make it so that they really are the last things we do, and let's look at the remaining lands.
Oh, yeah.
We've looked at these two cycles for each of the other colors already. The mechanic is the same for every color. You have the two lands. The one that comes in tapped and you can use it as a land, or you can sacrifice it to make two of the color. And we have the storage lands where it comes in and you start putting a counter onto each turn. And you can just leave it tapped to keep getting counters. And eventually you untap it and take a bunch of counters off for a bigger boost of mana for just that one turn. And so the Ebon Stronghold is the sack land.
Yeah, I love how desolate this one looks.
That's the same word I was thinking. Desolate is perfect.
Yeah, you have we've kind of seen some progression in the various landscapes of how the temperature is changing. Like, this is very much a winter scene. Like, there's no leaves on the trees at all.
Yeah.
You have this really beautiful but kind of eerie full moon. And then, yeah, the tower is standing, but the roof is completely caving in.
Yeah. And that's such an important detail because it's the Ebon Hand, it's the creepy cult. It wouldn't be surprising if this was basically their aesthetic normally.
I mean,
but,
yeah.
but the roof being half missing makes it very clear. No, this is actually out of use. This
is
truly
fallen
a state
into
of decay.
disrepair.
Yeah. And then the bottomless vault looks so similar to the Dwarven Hold to me. It has the same angle, same perspective, same kind of type stone texture. And the two cycles, each cycle is illustrated by a single artist. So Pat Morrissey did all of the storage lands, and Mark Poole did all of the sack lands. So there's a reason for that. But it's just a real interesting parallel. And they show up right next to each other here on Scryfall. That helps.
Yeah, Bottomless Vault is fun. It's got the kind of cartoony, creepy cult aesthetic of like, okay, we're going to build a storage vault. We want it to have a really creepy face.
Yeah.
Big fangs.
Yeah, the fangs on the skulls is definitely a theme with the Ebon Hand.
Yeah.
You can't just have skulls, you gotta have fangs.
Like,
skulls.
I'm imagining them commissioning this, and they're like, this, but we make it creepier.
Yeah.
Like, we really want to telegraph that we are the creepy cult faction.
Yeah, we are the bad guys.
We don't want people to question that.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want people showing up and be like, oh, I'm sorry, I thought this was the Order of Lightburst sign-up desk. They're like, no. We want you to be ready to relinquish your hand for weird eyes in your chest.
Yeah.
Like, we want this to be on brand. And it is very on brand for them. Like,
Yeah, it is.
it's like kind of cartoonishly so, just in the sort of over-the-top, like, we're very evil kind of way, but...
I think I'm seeing one of the reasons that makes me connect it to the Dwarven Hold.
Yeah.
The Dwarven Hold, you see some pallets suspended currently from a pulley. So it looks like there's action going on now. This is the civilization realizing that winter is coming. They've got to stock up.
Yes.
And in Bottomless Vault, we don't see pallets, we don't see goods, but we do see light from within the vault. It's occupied. It's not out of use right now. There's light coming in. It looks like we are in a cavern, and the vault itself has a door within a cavern, and there is light coming in from outside, but there's also a lot more light coming from the eye sockets and the mouth of this thing. So clearly there's someone or something in there preparing.
The lights are on.
The lights are on.
Yeah.
In great contrast to this stronghold, which is clearly much later chronologically.
Yeah.
So then we are finally at our leisure to discuss the coolest.
It's time.
The coolest faction within Fallen Empires.
I'm so excited about this.
Thrall time.
It's Thrall time.
Yeah. And unlike so many of these creature types that only have a couple of commons, we got 4 commons.
Yeah. We got a lot of thralls.
We've got so many thralls. I'm kind of... Well, yeah, I'm kind of leaping ahead to references from the novel, but I just read the novel last week. We very purposefully did not want to be pulling in supplemental fiction to our overview of the set. We want the cards to speak for themselves and say what does this card set do in terms of world building. So that's largely why we haven't focused on those other things outside of the articles that were published while the set was being released. But my current concept of a thrall has been influenced by the novel And Peace Shall Sleep. And that I'm now thinking of them as a grim, dark house elf.
Okay.
It's like Dobby's personality from the Harry Potter movies, and it's my household watches Harry Potter annually in the Christmas season, like I think a lot of people do, and so I've just recently been seeing Dobby, and there's always a little bit of Warhammer 40k lore floating around in my head, even though I've never really played that game. It's just such an the grimdark thing it's got a hook in me, and so these things are just like, they are the thing I'm pulling from the novel is it calls them the created ones, and I love that so much. And
I like that.
they are these things that were created to serve and oppressed. They're created to be sacrificed. Like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy references briefly this organism which wants to be eaten. And that whole series is so silly and light that's presented as a joke there, but that's what these were supposed to be. These are the creatures that should want to be sacrificed. That's where they're bred to be. But lo and behold, they don't actually want to be, and so they have a rebellion. And they destroy the Ebon Hand. That's how that particular empire fell.
So I have briefly mentioned before the concept of sewer babies.
Yes.
And a lot of these Thrulls are very much sewer babies. I will point out which ones are sewer babies if to anyone who's interested.
Yeah, I think that's important.
But also, I love... So, I started playing Magic way long after Fallen Empires. My first introduction to the idea of Thrulls as a creature type was Endrixar Master Breeder. Who I always saw, like not knowing anything about who he was, always just saw like the picture with him and all his little thralls always struck me as like, oh, he's such a proud father with like all his little thrall creations. Like they look like they're at JCPenney, like taking a photo together. So yeah, this is there's been a more, this is the one. And like these creatures, all sewer babies, very sewer baby aesthetic. The newer art with him is, they're kind of sewer babies, but they're in their little test tubes. It's harder to get a feel for them. And I don't get the sense, he looks more of a scientist here. Like, I don't get the sense that he's, like, has a relationship with them. The way they're just, like, crawling around him in the Mark Tadine art, like, it feels like
they're comfortable with each other.
They're comfy, they're like little toddlers just, like, scuttling around, and he's, like, he looks really proud of them in this kind of stoic, stern sort of way. Just like, yes, these are my thralls. So when I found out that Thrulls had been in the game for so long, and that there were many more of them, I was delighted.
So, of course, that card, Endrixar Master Breeder, didn't come out until 2006, so
many
12 years later.
After this.
Yeah, so all we know about Endrixar until that time is what's on the flavor text we're about to see. And it's pretty dark, like you would probably expect.
Yeah, what a surprise.
So let's start with the basal Thrulls, because they're basal, which I assume just is a modification of the word base, B-A-S-E, like fundamental. But it confused me a lot as a child, or as a preteen, because I didn't know the difference between that and the spice, basil. And I did not, confusion. Who should we start with among them?
Oh, they're so good.
Well, here we have husband and wife team Kaya and Phil Folio. They each created an art here. They each got a thrall.
So this first one, the Kaya Folio one, real interesting pose. First of all, contortionist. Kind of goblin-esque, kind of not. Like the real long, creepy. Like they're humanoid, but clearly they've been modified a bit. What do? You tap this creature to add... You tap it to sacrifice it and add double black to your mana pool. Flavor text for this one says, initially bred for sacrifice, the Thrulls eventually turned on their masters, the Order of the Ebon Hand, with gruesome results.
And that's the thesis statement for the Thrulls' whole arc.
Yeah. So this is kind of parallel to the elves breeding the sapperlings.
Yeah, they breed the thalids.
They breed the thalids, and for food, and then that gets out of hand.
Yeah.
The Ebon Hand creates Thrulls for sacrificial purposes. That doesn't go quite the way they wanted that to happen. This is just a very eerie creature with these really long, spindly,
See, that's a grimdark house elf.
Yeah.
Not all of these are. There's the Thrulls across the board getting ahead of myself a little bit, maybe kind of one of the examples of the lack of a common style guide being a weak point, because it just, I don't know.
Yeah, we get some very different looks from them. I kind of get the sense, at least for my own headcanon of like what's going on with them, is that they are essentially mutations of other things, and so like as they're breeding them, that there is some variation in like what comes out.
Yeah.
That they're not exactly, they're kind of a hodgepodge.
Yeah. Well, and I guess I'm taking the physics and biology of our world and expecting theirs to resemble things, but
I assume this is heavily steeped in dark magic.
Yeah.
And
I should be expecting more out of that. So this is more like, what was the pre-evolution model of a spontaneous generation? Like, rats come from blankets that haven't been washed. That's where they come from.
There's probably a bit of that here at work. And so, we get some really, really different looks across these creature types.
Yeah. And even Phil Folios is quite different, though not as different as we get from some of the other things.
Yeah.
It is also fairly cartoonish. And this one has really just bright, cheerful colors.
Yeah.
The thing we're seeing is not cheerful. They're hog-tied, sacrificial critters. It's dark and creepy if you think about it. But if you don't think about it, they just look like stuffed animals for sale.
Yeah. Nothing to see here.
And here we have an Endrixar quote. Although my later designs were much more sophisticated, basal Thrulls were no less a success. And I do like that the basal Thrull, the most fundamental version, is you just sacrifice it to get the mana back. That's cool. It's mechanically useful in the game of Magic, but it's also really fundamental. So if they were going to design something first, well, we'll try this first, then we'll see if we can get more creative with what it does after you sacrifice it.
Yeah.
But then we get to, two phenomenal arts.
Yeah, these next two are really great. Let's look at the Richard Kane Ferguson one next.
Yeah.
So this one is more reptilian. There's just a lot. Like, look, can we make it bigger?
Yeah. I've always had a hard time I love it, but I had a hard time visually parsing it and understanding what the different parts are necessarily.
Yeah. So this is one that really captures that feeling I was kind of alluding to with the, like, these are kind of a mutated hodgepodge of different parts.
Yeah.
Different kinds of creatures that they've experimented with.
Yeah.
They feel a bit like the Thralls to me visually feel like predecessors of what we later see with Phyrexians being completed, where they're sort of a base life form that is modified, and then you get these variant kind of results.
Yeah. We should read the flavor text here before we finish talking about the art, because it just ties into what you're saying.
Yeah, to create the first Thralls, I only introduced alchemic elements into the Order's necromancy. Turok's principles remained unchanged, and Endrixar, master breeder. So he's just adding his own little touch of alchemy into their existing necromantic rituals.
Yeah. So they didn't, that implies they did not experiment on living creatures. They took dead creatures and Frankensteined.
Yeah, and
them.
I mean, that works. That's kind of...
So they're just stitchers.
I should
before
probably
we had the word stitcher.
Revise that. Not so much living creatures, but like extant life forms.
Yeah,
living or dead.
Yeah.
And then have been altered.
And I would not put experimenting on living things above them at all. If they were,
I'm sure that there was a fair amount of that too. Yeah. But yeah, this is it's kind of hard to parse what's happening here, but there is a figure that we can see kind of sitting on a jumble of something. Yeah. And it looks like it's kind of stitched together, like maybe a couple of different parts to form a head. Doesn't have the most defined mouth or anything, but that's probably fine, because we don't really care if this thing can feed itself. We just need to sacrifice it.
Yeah. You know? Yep, you're right.
Yeah, this is very eerie.
I don't know. Like I said, it's been hard for me to process this. These two, what appear to be shafts of light, make it feel almost like it's pre-animation. Like it looks like taxidermy or like a sculpture. Yeah. That it's going to be animated. But that looks like its head to me. And here it looks like it's got a small bipedal body.
Yeah.
But it is so ambiguous. Like I think this is an arm here. There's a forearm. Here's a claw, but it's facing the wrong way. And But below that, it's really hard to make out, is this a belly? Is this legs down here? Or
and I think that's kind of intentional, and
Yeah.
I like that it's difficult for us to make sense of what we're looking at here. There's something about the colors and the general aesthetic of this one, too, that almost make me feel like this could be a puppet. Like, this feels like a really dark side of, like, the Dark Crystal universe.
Yes, I was thinking this. Yeah.
You know?
You're right. I don't know. Like, that's not even the dark. This just lives with the Skeksis.
Yeah, that would track. Just like in one of the rooms where they're not extracting essence, this is happening.
Yeah. I think that's exactly the level of ethics that the Skeksis adhere to.
I think they would be fine with co-working in one of their labs with the Ebon Hand. I don't think they would have any
omen path opens up there.
Yeah, they wouldn't have any ethical dilemmas about that. Yeah.
I mean, they would absolutely plan to backstab them and take their stuff, but
they wouldn't be opposed to anything the other ones are doing.
Yeah. They're not bothered by it.
No.
And then the other visual elements of this, as far as I can tell, I've always noticed this and thought of it as a pillar. And I don't know what it's supposed to be, but it looks like a pillar with a fountain in it to me. Which is that's kind
of what I was getting.
idyllic.
There's like a fountain, there's like a basin or something.
Yeah. It's like a little meditative waterfall in the back of the room, which it's never occurred to me that's really weird.
Yeah, that's kind of an odd choice.
But I like
this
it.
setting, but yeah, sure.
Yeah. And then over here, this is something I haven't really noticed in the past, is this appears to be a humanoid figure looking on, and I assume that is one of the creators of the Thrulls. Maybe that's Indrixar.
Maybe.
Though that would take some of the mystery out of it. Yeah. Of course, now he has a card, so it's not a mystery anymore, but at the time, we didn't have any of these named characters clearly depicted. And I have no idea what this... Maybe that's a cavern going to the back, and there's a source of light out there, but I don't know what this is in the foreground here. I have no idea. Is that like part of the Thrall's body that's being formed, or spare parts or something? We don't get to know.
I don't really know.
Yeah, it's cool. Your eye is drawn to the important parts.
Yeah,
that's.
I think the
really
beams
cool.
of light work really well, both in kind of implying like this is yet to be animated.
Yeah.
Like perhaps it has to undergo some sort of energy infusion before that can happen.
Yeah.
But also drawing your eye to the most important part of this piece.
Yeah. That one may be my favorite, but as usual, it's really hard to decide because there's also this great Christopher Rush one.
Yeah, this is my personal favorite.
Yeah.
I love this one.
It is so different than all the others.
Is.
Like the first two are kind of gooers. Well, I don't know. The one who's doing the exorcist walk down the stairs kind of thing. That's creepy in its own way.
Yeah, that's kind of creepy in its own way.
This is a completely different level of
intimidating. Like if I saw that thing on your stairs, I'd just be like, I gotta go right now.
If I have to choose between the two, though, I'm taking the backbendy one. I am not approaching this one.
I think it depends on how big this one is. Because we don't get a sense of scale. I don't know how large this is.
Yeah.
If this is big...
Yeah.
Then I don't think I really.
I think they're all small.
Okay.
Because they're the basal Thralls.
Yeah.
They're just their stats are relatively small compared to everything. Then again, a Benalish hero is a 1/1, and this is bigger than those.
I mean, I'm probably like a 0/1. So like, if I don't know if I really want to get into it with this 1/2.
And they haven't in this era. They don't hesitate to create 0/2 Goblin Chirurgians or just 0.
Yeah.
And the combat medics is 0/2, right? So they don't hesitate to make things with 0 power if they think that makes sense flavor wise. But these Thralls, even though they are the basic model, had power.
Yeah. So this one, we have another quote from Indrixar. Above all, a well-crafted thrall should be hideous, blasted of countenance and twisted of limb to inspire fear and revulsion. Just kind of curious. Because the first thing that comes to mind for me is that I don't get the sense that anyone in the Ebon Hand necessarily needs this. But I kind of feel like they don't want you to feel bad about sacrificing.
That was exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very natural conclusion to draw from that.
So, I don't know, perhaps, as a whole, the Ebon Hand certainly has some amoral principles, but I could imagine, they don't want you to hesitate when you're doing the sacrifice, and you're like, oh, I don't know, it's so cute, though. Just make him as hideous as possible, so you're not worried about that.
Yep. You don't want that house elf problem.
No! Look at them.
Yeah.
I mean, those are some scary teeth.
Yeah. I still kind of think it's cute.
It is. This was definitely a sewer baby. So, like, this is a sewer baby for me.
Is it? Mm-hmm. All right. Just admiring it. This is very Phyrexian design in that it has these tubes, which are probably supposed to be organic rather than mechanical, but still,
Yeah.
And it's got, well, this is like a leather strap or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that's for. Like, maybe you're supposed to grab the Thrall by the strap and, like, take it somewhere. I don't know.
Yep, that absolutely tracks.
Or, like, it could be, it's not the right shape, but given this thing's jaw structure, you couldn't do this, is there's a thing you can get for dogs called a gentle lead that wraps around the muzzle. It's supposed to help with dogs who are, like, really aggressive pullers when you're on a leash. So, like, it's pulling on the muzzle and it's, like, teaches them to not do that.
Yeah.
That kind of reminds me of that sort of thing, but I don't see a hookup for someone to, like, walk their thrall to the sacrificial table.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that would work.
Yeah. I guess we haven't really emphasized too much the difference between common 3s and common 4s in this set. And I don't know what all motivated wizards to do that at all, to have 3s and 4s, nor how they decided which card would be in which category. But it feels like in this case, where we can look at a picture of all the thralls, that this means the basal and the armor thralls were the most common, and the Nekrites and the Mind Stab thralls were a little more pricey to create or more valuable or something, so they didn't churn out quite so many. So I'm inclined to look at the armor thrall next.
Yeah, let's take a look at those.
These are probably the most pitiable, and that largely flows from the picture and the flavor text of the Pete Vinters art.
Yeah, this one looks sad.
Yeah.
The worst thing about being a mercenary for the Ebon Hand is having to wear a dead thrall.
Attributed to our favorite, Ivra Yura's daughter.
Yeah, so this is presumably a thrall that's about to be ended.
Yep.
And I'm not sure why they have to wear them, but...
Because it's an armor thrall. I mean, I think that we're supposed to look at the mechanics and
so
figure,
like maybe they're growing them for their armor and then you just like suit up.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely what it is. These are organic protection. They're organic cloaks.
Yeah.
They like cloaks too.
Yeah, cloaks are great.
But they're like, why don't we just farm them? And so they do.
Yeah, so this one, if I bothered to read what it does, it'll explain. You tap and sack the armor thrall to put a 1/2 counter on a target creature. So yeah, it does exactly that.
Yeah, with yet another size of counter.
Yes, so get out your counter sheet. We're not done with that yet.
Yeah.
This one does look very sad and pitiable.
It does, and that does tremendous. It pulls its weight a lot storytelling wise, because this alone makes me pity the thralls.
Yeah.
Like most of these, Endriksar, I guess, succeeded in making them, what did he say, inspire fear and revulsion.
Yeah.
But this one is sad, and it makes me root for the thralls.
Yeah, it looks scared.
Yeah. Then Ivra, Yura's daughter, quoted once again, and despite my protestations about not referencing the comics and novels, which were published a year or two after the card set, we have referenced repeatedly the story article that came out on the Duelist contemporaneously. Am I using that word right? At the same time?
I think so.
Trying to sound smart and then making myself obviously not, because I'm not sure if that's the right word. But it came out at the same time as the set.
Yes.
And there were those 3 pages of letters back and forth between the leaders of the civilizations or the leaders of their militaries, and they outlined the story of how Ivra Yura's daughter was the mercenary who betrayed everyone, and I think she was sent from the Ebon Hand to the dwarves to assist them, but then turned and helped the goblins instead. And yeah, but so she worked with the Ebon Hand, or worked for the Ebon Hand, before she went to the dwarves. Yeah. Okay, that's my second favorite armor thrall. I assume this is your favorite?
This is a really good one.
We'll come back to that one last
Yeah,
time.
let's come back to that one.
Let's look at these other two.
So this next one, I want to look at the Scott Kirshner one.
Okay.
That one is interesting in its own kind of ways. And again, aesthetically quite different.
Yeah, this is... Oh, well, let me immediately overwrite what I'm saying myself. But this one it really is the worst case of a negative outcome from not having a unified style guide.
Yeah.
Because this looks like a humanoid.
Right.
It's almost like a human, and none of the other Thrulls do. But now, for the first time, after looking at this card for 30 years, I'm thinking, oh, we are looking at an initiate or an order member wearing the armor Thrull after it has been sacrificed.
Yes. So the flavor text on this says, occasionally, an ally balked at wearing a dead Thrull as armor. The priest's whips, however, were usually enough to encourage a more practical outlook. And there's something, so at first glance, this just kind of looks like a humanoid in armor with some kind of rudimentary, this one has like a dagger strapped to the forearm.
Yeah.
But there are some kind of disturbing elements here of the armor appearing as though it is embedded into the person's flesh.
These three spikes, protrusions
that
up here.
Feels like that is... And also up here, this kind of looks like it's implanted or something.
Oh, you're right. Eek.
Which really adds an element of horror to this, more so than just the idea of having to wear dead Thrall pieces.
Yeah. That is considerably more disturbing.
Yeah. Yeah, and like it's got this interesting headpiece, and then I just noticed there's like a tusk coming out here. Which I guess that's probably another Thrall part. Yeah.
Man, my whole worldview is shaken. I've always thought this whole thing was the Thrall, and now, for the first time, I'm realizing that's a dude wearing a Thrall.
Yeah. This is the armor that you harvest off of the Thrall.
Yeah. That's interesting. It makes a battle skirt.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm seeing this very much as like the sort of video game crafting systems where like you harvest the Thrall and then you somehow like transform it into a...
How come you have to kill 10 Thralls to get one shoulder pad?
Yeah. You know how many Thralls that battle skirt probably takes? Like 50 of them, I bet.
Oh no. All right. This is Jeff A. Minguez, who did this art, and this is yet another design considerably different, and this one appears not to have legs. The way it's positioned on the ground makes me think it's more snake-like or worm-like.
Yeah, I see that.
But it also looks like its bottom half would turn into a battle skirt, unlike the first one I looked at. But I guess the most interesting part is what it seems to be drinking water from this subterranean place it's in. I guess it lives in a dungeon, essentially. But does it have like a proboscis?
Oh, maybe. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure how it's slurping water.
Yeah.
But it does appear that it has some sort of tongue or appendage that's allowing it to draw the fluid up into the mouth.
Yeah. And it's got kind of chicken foot hands. And sort of an exoskeleton with these vertebrae plates sticking up. It's an interesting design. It looks sort of insectoid. Well, no, insects don't have spines.
Yeah, because like it very clearly has like the vertebra on the back, but then just like the outer arm, like the armor plating, I think kind of gives it a somewhat insect feel.
Once again, we ought to read the flavor text before we get too far into this, because it partly explains this, or perhaps it completely explains this. Except for a bare spot at the base of their skulls, armor Thrulls bear interlocking plates and spikes with the strength of steel. Their design is almost artistic.
You know, he probably engineered that bare spot intentionally.
Oh, yeah. Oh, geez, yeah. But it's also funny that Indrik Sar...
Yes.
Their design is almost artistic. He designed
them. He made them himself, yeah. And this is from his work, Thrulls.
Yeah.
So he's just patting himself on the back here.
Yeah. He gets his. We'll see soon.
Yeah.
This makes sense for a creature that's going to be sacrificed for its carapace.
Yeah.
Yeah. Creepy. Again, this all makes me sad, but it makes me so excited that they rebelled and won, you know? That part's neat. Okay, now we get to look at
Yeah.
another contender for best art in the set.
Yes, this is the spikiest Thrall.
The spikiest Thrall. Yes, it is.
So this is the Ron Spencer Thrall.
This is the one I picture in my head when I think of Grimdark Dobby.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that.
Like, I guess this conveys a lot of anger, but I'm also... but I also think it's been whipped.
Yeah.
Like, it's been abused. And it seems to have, like, welts and sores on its back. So I think it's a pitiable creature. It's terrifying, but it's pitiable.
Yeah, so this one is kind of alluding to what's going to come next in the story. They gave their lives to strengthen the Order's armies until they declined this honor in favor of joining the Thrall Rebellion. Jirana Rur, Counterinsurgency Commander.
I think this is the only time we ever hear that name or that term, and that's interesting. I assume that means that the Ebon Hand lost control and was trying... The counterinsurgency is trying to put down the Thrall Rebellion, right?
That's what that implies to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do like how, like, this one, yes, for, definitely feel some pity for this poor creature. Like, this is obvious. This creature has obviously been mistreated.
Yeah.
But I think this one also has... There's an energy about this one, the way it's turning to look back at the torturer, presumably. Or you, the planeswalker or wizard, about to sacrifice it for its armored capabilities.
I'm never going to be able to do that now.
And, like, it's meeting your gaze in a confrontational kind of way.
Yeah. This is cool. Yeah, Ron Spencer is constantly cranking out stuff that's just wicked.
Yeah.
But this is, like, more than that. It has that layer. It's... It's very cool.
Yeah, I love this.
Yeah. I envisioned this as the leader of the rebellion.
I could see that.
Then we have the two thralls, the Mindstab Thrall and the Necrite, which allow you to sacrifice them if they attack and are not blocked for an effect. So shall we start with the Necrite? Because it's a more straightforward effect.
Yeah, let's take a look at that one.
All right. This one...
We got some real impressionistic Drew Tucker coming up next here.
Yeah, you want to start with that one?
Yeah, this one is... We have, like, two figures.
Should we completely explain the mechanic first?
Yeah, so let's look at this.
Yeah, so this is one black for 2/2.
And this is a 2/2 Thrall. Whenever Necrite attacks and isn't blocked, you may sacrifice it. If you do, destroy target creature defending player controls and it can't be regenerated.
Used to say bury.
Yeah.
It says bury on the card, but that is just a deprecated word that means destroy and can't be regenerated, because regeneration was such a big deal back then. And you constantly had to explain that it can't be used in every circumstance.
This is a curious function. And the flavor text says, was it the sight, smell, or aura of the Necrite that killed so effectively?
Yeah.
Because it's interesting that if this thing gets in and does combat damage, and then you, the controller, sacrifice it, you can just destroy some target creature in command.
I have made an assertion a few videos back, or maybe a few months ago, that this is called the assassin mechanic, and I'm pretty sure I read that in a design article somewhere, but I cannot find a reference to that. So I'm wondering if that's a fever dream. I might have made that up, but... Whatever it is a recurring ability we see in Magic. Different parameters of it. Most occurrences, you don't have to sacrifice the thing, but often you can get an effect when you hit someone, or when it's not blocked, or like instead of doing the damage. But in this case, you send this little assassin in, it then gets to take out a target if it gets by undetected instead of... It feels very... that's the flavor to me. They're little ninjas. They're assassins. And that's
I think flavor-wise, it's interesting to me that you have to sacrifice them to get that effect.
Yeah.
But it is cool that you get that option if they get in and they're not blocked.
And I don't think they really explain that in any of the flavor text, what that is. Is it...
I mean, it feels like...
Do they explode?
Like, it's hard to say. Like, to me, it feels like the condition of having to do combat damage first. So they have to get in and not be blocked.
Yeah.
Almost creates some kind of connection with the controller. And then you're able to sacrifice them and do your magic to destroy one of their creatures.
Yeah.
So it's like they have to get in and touch you, though.
Yeah.
To complete the spell.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess today in Magic, the sort of metaphor of the game is much more abstract, and we don't think of I am a planeswalker and I am in direct control of this being as much as we did in the beginning of the game. Because the original, that first story by Richard Garfield has got this real cynical thing where basically you enslave these beings that you are controlling, ripping them from their home plane and making them fight on your behalf. And that's what some of the original novels focused on, the inhumanity of that, right? That's what the Greensleeves trilogy is all about. It's about how horrific are wizards. Planeswalkers, they're awful. Which was a weird
Yeah,
take.
so buy our game, become a planeswalker, you too can be reviled.
Yeah, but if that is the model, that for the things that you control on the battlefield, they're directly under your command. They're your chess pieces, and they're connected to you. That does make sense a lot.
Yeah, because there's effects in the game that are like, oh, you can like at instant speed do like not specifically in this era, but you can, like deal X damage to target creature who already took damage this turn.
Yeah.
There's different things like that kind of care about the creature having already had something happen this turn. But like this is dependent on you, the player, taking damage from the Necrite, and then I can sacrifice it and do my ritual kill spell.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's a neat effect. I guess what we're seeing here, it's kind of, this is such an abstracted piece.
Yeah.
But there's this figure in the background that I didn't notice at first. And so I imagine that what we're seeing is like the Thrall, either the energy or the aura, like reaching out to, it looks like strangle the target creature that we're destroying.
Yeah. I've always thought of this, it's just, so this looks like an assassination on the street. Like someone just jumps out of murder. But I don't like how similar the assassin looks to the creature it's assassinating.
They look almost identical.
Yeah, so it just looks like a person. It doesn't look like a Thrall, and there's so many different designs of Thrall that we've seen here, but this one just looks like a person. It looks like it's the same scale, the same colors, and that's where you have a drawback of Drew Tucker's really impressionistic style, because we can't, if he had a different model in mind for what this thing looked like, we can't tell.
True.
So I think this is probably one of the weaker uses of Drew Tucker's art style. It just doesn't fit what we're needing to convey here that well. But then we have two phenomenal Necrite arts. Why don't we look at this one first? Because I am realizing should have read ahead a little longer. Let's just start with the flavor text. We sure do see another reference to Durana Ruhr.
Yeah, so remember Durana Ruhr, Necrites killed them. Ending the counterinsurgency. So that was over just as quickly as it began, apparently.
Yeah. Sure seems like it.
Yeah, so another phenomenal Ron Spencer piece. Love the inclusion of centipedes.
I was going to say, you famously
love centipedes.
You canonically love centipedes.
Canonically, famously.
Though this is only famous to me because it comes up a lot in our conversation. I'm always creeped out by it. I am not a person who's generally icked out by most bugs and organisms, but
you're not someone who's like easy to ick out, because I definitely know some people that like don't want to hear about any of that stuff.
Yeah,
and
but this is one of them.
No, I would say that I am famously into centipedes, because I have other friends that just send me like random stuff, including with centipede content, and I'm like, yay, thank you, send me all the centipedes. But yeah, this is so curious because there's the centipede that's like wrapped around the Necrite's head.
Yeah. This is an excellent use of a centipede.
And then there's like another centipede that looks like it's like crawling out of the mouth or something.
Oh no, that's his tongue.
Is that the tongue? Because the tongue coils down here.
It wraps around and it narrows to a tip.
It looks like it's got little leggies, but maybe I'm...
Oh, I think those are just texture. That's Ron Spencer doing texture
That's just
things.
some beautiful texture. Okay, yep. I was just like, are there more centipedes? And he's got a little nose ring. That's cool.
Oh, I never noticed that.
Yeah.
Actually, attached to the centipede?
It is! I think it is.
That is the wildest
So we'll have
thing.
to look this up. There was actually a trend for a while of wearing a bug on a little chain and like pinning it to yourself.
What?
Yeah, we need to look this up. This is relevant. I think it was
the
like
real world.
Yeah, in the real world. This is a real world thing. Hang on, we're gonna look this up real quick. This is a legitimate thing.
I was not prepared for this. I'm intrigued.
I feel like I always just come over and tell you something wild that you're just like, nah.
So in the early, months of this channel, we experimented a lot about how scripted to make things, and we have trended toward just having a pretty open outline. And so we get moments like this a lot.
Yeah, sometimes I just say something weird. Yeah, so the one that I'm specifically thinking of is in the 1980s.
The 1980s.
1980s. This is from the Wikipedia article. The Mexican macaque, made from a subspecies of the Zoophorus beetle, achieved mainstream popularity as live jewelry. The beetle is large, docile, and wingless. It is decorated with gold and gemstones, and is attached to a decorative safety pin by a chain leash. Marketing for the brooch states that during the Mayan period, women from the Yucatan Peninsula wore maqueches pinned to their chest over their hearts to attract and sustain loving relationships.
Wow. Attributed to Mayan folklore.
Yeah.
More likely a recent fabrication for tourists. Okay.
Yeah. Apparently it's illegal to import the beetles into the U.S.
Uh-huh.
So I don't have one, obviously.
Yeah.
But, like, there's references to living insect jewelry, like, going back to ancient Egypt.
Wow.
There's also some stuff. It's apparently in 2006, even more recently, fashion designer Jared Gold popularized the roach brooch with the inclusion of a giant Madagascar.
You gotta make it rhyme more, the roach brooch.
The roach brooch. With the inclusion of the giant Madagascar hissing cockroach in his 2006 collection.
Okay.
They were accessorized with a leash set and were sold as ready-to-wear jewelry.
This seems very ethically questionable, but it's
very
really
much
cool.
at home
Oh, yeah.
in this context.
Oh yeah, in this context, I have no qualms.
So yeah, it looks like the nose ring is attached to the centipede, and he's just got a little pet there.
Wow.
Which, like, that's cool.
Yeah. This Thrull, of all the Thrulls we've looked at, looks the happiest with his job.
He does. He looks like he's having a great day.
This is pure
But I
murderous
mean,
intent.
if I ended the counterinsurgency, I'd be feeling pretty good about myself.
I guess that's
too.
true. I should pair this art
Yeah.
with that particular. Yeah, but I mean, they are one-use Thrulls.
Yeah.
Like, much like a bee, it can sting only once.
Yeah. But I mean, if you get the leader of the counterinsurgency,
Yeah,
then,
like you're going down in history.
you did it.
Yeah.
Good job.
It is more humanoid. It has a very human face.
Yeah.
Which doesn't fit in with the rest that well, but it's definitely got enough of just creepy factor that, it
this
does...
one feels more like a Smeagol, like disfigured.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
You know, like it's still there, but it's like
Or just
obviously.
a straight up zombie. This,
Yeah.
if this had been any zombie card, I would not have
Oh yeah.
flinched. Like,
this could
sure, that's a
easily
zombie.
be a zombie.
Yep. All right, and then this one could not be a zombie. This looks like a Phyrexian, actually. This is proto-Phyrexian art design.
Yeah, very much so. So Christopher Rush did this one. We've got the bright green acidic background like we saw with the Basil Thrall that he did.
Yeah.
So very similar background, but yeah, this one has some interesting elements. More like Phyrexian kind of shapes, and like definitely not humanoid, kind of a almost Venom look to the face with like those big sharp teeth and the tongue, and just really interesting.
Now that this is another thing where I'm seeing different things now that I'm zoomed in, I actually kind of like this less, because I am seeing now that this whole thing is most likely armor. It's a helmet, and its eye is this little red spot right here. I've always thought these larger red spots here were the eyes.
Yeah, no, I think the eye is that smaller piece.
It's very
higher
reptilian.
up. So this one says, ever see a wall drop dead of fright, kid? It ain't pretty. Credited to Corporal Dobbs.
And that feels like just more a joke about how silly is it that walls are creatures in magic. And actually, Mark Rosewater was just railing against that in a recent Drive to Work podcast, how that's one of his things he has always thought is dumb.
Yeah.
And so for a while, they kind of got rid of walls from the game.
But yeah, just kind of a funny idea. I was like, well, what if I use the Necrite to destroy your wall?
But that also is an explanation for the mechanism of the Necrite, that isn't provided elsewhere. Why? Well, it still doesn't explain why it dies after being used, why you have to sacrifice it to use it, but it's killing through fear.
Yeah.
Which is wild, because this looks like it kills through lacerations.
Yes. Yes, this looks very deadly.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe that's just part of the, the psychological warfare.
Yeah, it's actually made of marshmallow, but it
Yeah.
just looks so intimidating
It's
that
made
people
of
keep having heart
the
attacks.
same material that bananas and shrimps are from that post you sent me.
I'm going to have to explain that.
There's these candies that I just found out about because he sent me a Reddit post.
Yeah.
They're called foam bananas and shrimps. It's like a UK thing. if you know
I'll have to
about
put
it.
the picture.
Yeah, put the picture up there. I am baffled by them. Like, I went on a deep dive about these things.
I'm sure if you grew up with these, they don't seem weird to you. Trust me,
probably-
they're very weird. That is a weird thing to shape candy.
These have
like,
lived in my head rent-free since you sent
Oh,
it to
yeah.
me.
Yeah.
I've told several people about them because I needed someone else to experience what I was experiencing. I found where to buy them online because now I kind of want to eat some.
Have you bought some?
Not yet.
Please do.
I'm gonna buy. Yeah, I thought it'd be funny if we ate them on the channel, but that's why
yes,
I needed
please.
to introduce.
Okay,
this
yeah,
first.
that's coming
Otherwise,
soon-ish.
it would just be totally out of context.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I will get some.
Good.
Anyway,
We're doing good work.
yeah, this is quite a fascinating looking creature.
Yeah.
Very memorable.
Yeah. So that's in the crate.
It's got a neat name too.
Yeah. Okay. And then we have the very mechanically similar Mind Stab Thrall. Also
Yeah.
3 arts on this one. And it has the same triggering conditions. If you attack and are not blocked, you can sacrifice this and it does no combat damage. But instead,
The player you attacked has to discard 3 cards.
yeah, they're not random, but it's 3 cards.
Yeah.
So often, when you get to the point where someone can have cast a 3-drop and it attacked, you only have 3 cards.
Yeah.
Like, this is
That might be your whole hand.
this is brutal.
Yeah.
Of course, it's going to take some doing to get through with a 2/2 at that stage of the
Yeah.
game, but what a payoff. And what a set of art.
Yeah, I think my favorite of these, personally, I really like the Heather Hudson art. Just this strange little creature absconding with a bomb, it looks like.
Are you saying this is your favorite?
I think this is my favorite.
Oh, wow, okay.
I just really enjoy this.
It's my third favorite out of the 3, but I love it. It is so weird.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's like running away with a bomb, and it looks... the expression on this thing's face is so neutral.
Just, this is what I do.
Yeah. Like, this is just an average day.
But let's talk about its, like, mushroom sheets.
Yeah, it looks like it has some kind of mushroom growth coming out of it that's, like, very much attached to the body.
Yeah.
And then real long feet.
And those things are layers, and it almost has a skirt made out of the
Yeah.
same thing. It's almost like a wattle on a...
Yeah,
is
like
it?
on a chicken
Yeah.
or turkey or something.
It's like that kind of material, but it circles down, and it's kind of like a jellyfish.
Yeah, it's such an interesting anatomy, and then it's just cradling this bomb, very nonchalant. The people around look terrified.
Yeah, they know
Everyone
this is
hiding.
bad.
They were like, we hate this. And yeah, it's just going about its business, you know?
And it's like wrist is very malformed.
Yeah, it has this weird kind of posture.
Yeah, and its feet have weird dimensions. Like, everything here is just weird on purpose, I
Yeah,
think.
Like, look at how long
I don't
those
think
feet
any of
are.
that's an accident.
No, I think that's very intentional.
Yeah. I guess, I don't know, like, compared to the real world, fantasy art has a crazy range of anatomy, but we do end up falling into these same categories. Like, that's obviously an elf, that's obviously a dwarf,
Yeah.
that's obviously a goblin. There's more, tends to be more variety in goblins, but this is one of those rare times where, like, I've not seen anything like that.
No.
I mean, even like the Christopher Rush things we were looking at, they are very, very different than the normal.
Yeah.
But
I think proportionally, they're more in line with what we expect.
they sort of fit some kind of archetype. But that may be just the benefit of hindsight when we have all these Phyrexians out there and we recognize that style, which is kind of influenced, I'm sure, by this early work by Chris Rush. But this is really unique.
I think it's the combination of familiar and unfamiliar elements. So
Yeah.
we have these growth sheets that are they're kind of like a mushroom, they're kind of like a jellyfish. They're kind of like some things we know, but they don't go on things like this. Like this is a bipedal terrestrial animal of some kind. You know, we're familiar with feet that are roughly this shape. These are very humanoid feet, but they're way too long. Normally, that's not what these kinds of feet would be like.
Yeah.
And they certainly wouldn't be attached to this,
Yeah.
but they are. And so I think all of those elements together, like, again, like, you know, we know how wrists work. Or how they should, or how we expect them to work.
Not like this.
Not like this, but that's how it's working right now. And so I think it's a combination of those elements of the familiar, the not familiar, like, all together in this one being that kind of gives you that sense. Also, like, this thing is fast. It is going so fast. It doesn't, like, look at the shadow.
It's not touching the ground.
It's not touching the ground.
Yeah.
So, like, not only does it have these real long feet, but, like, it is
It's got to be making this big, wet flopping sound.
Yeah! It's making this really weird flopping sound, but it's also going really fast. Like, it's like you would think, oh, it's gonna, like, look really comical running like that. No, it's, like, terrifying. It's like, look how fast and efficiently it's delivering this explosive device.
This was the real mind stab all along.
This was, yeah.
I mean, it's such a literal attack with a bomb, too.
Yeah.
What does that have to do with this card, like, mental attack? But
Yeah.
this is... You've really talked me up on this card.
Yeah.
Like, I did like this, but it is so weird. Then we have a Richard Kane Ferguson art. Also cool and creepy, but...
In different ways.
In different ways.
This one is so grotesque.
Yeah. This looks like a sad, angry old man.
Yeah, like, look at his... Like,
Hunched over.
Yeah, hunched over, and then it's not a crab claw, but it is like a two-pronged hand.
Yeah, you're right.
Here.
Almost like a pig hoof.
It
what it
does.
looks like.
It's a little bit hoof-like. It also is kind of evocative of like a root vegetable.
Yeah.
You know, just like it's just kind of off.
But honestly, this looks like a tuft of white hair, and so this does look to me like a person rather than this.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's more of a Frankenstein's monster
like
type
maybe
of
it has
creation.
parts of a person.
Yeah.
Because we've got some bits that are pretty recognizable, but then, you know, also, like, if you told me this was a zombie, it looks like parts of its face are falling off.
Yeah,
like, I wouldn't find that a stretch either.
Yeah. And
Very eerie.
the background is cool because we don't see much of the buildings or the architecture in this set. And we see a Haitian town, is it? That is just an empty town. And we have the lands, but there aren't a lot of backgrounds depicted. Anyway, just in the previous Mind Stab Throw, we did have a couple arches and a wall, but this is neat. We see like the shape of an actual city.
Yeah, I like that touch when we get to see more of the world that these creatures are inhabiting.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's supposed to be a human settlement, or perhaps this might be where the Ebon Hand themselves live.
Perhaps, yeah.
Or the dwarves presumably live in the Crimson Peaks. So this could be something they built up. That I'd assume they're more built into the mountainsides, and this have like an outdoors house kind of structure. But it's cool either way. And it kind of looks snowy.
It does, yeah.
Which
I could see that.
It should be in the Fallen Empires in the cooling climate. And then one last Mind Stab Throw.
Oh, this one is so eerie.
Yeah, this is just straight up body horror.
Yeah, this one is by Mark Tadine, and it almost feels like this feels a lot more of the Stitcher side of things. Like, I could see this being one of I know in Innistrad typically they use homunculus creatures as their little assistants. Yeah. But this kind of feels like something like that. Like, it's got too many hands. It's all hands.
Yep.
They clearly did some kind of experiment where they were like, what if all hands?
This is the proto-appendage amalgam.
Yeah, they're like...
Amalgam or amalgamation, whatever the decimal.
It's got, on one of its arms, this little lockpick kit.
That is such an important part of this, I think.
And it looks uncomfortable, which I think is valid given what we're seeing here.
Yeah.
but it just really adds to the body horror. Like, this creature does not look like it's having a good time.
We see what it's created to do. I mean, kind of. We're not sure how lockpicks fit into Mind Stab, but I guess probably in a pretty literal sense.
Yeah.
But the fact that it has that band with the multiple tools implies it has, like, a set of skills.
Yeah.
It's good at something. But it doesn't have any of... there's no place for a stomach. There's no way for this thing to survive.
Yeah.
It is created for a function.
I mean, it's min-maxed, it's like maximum dexterity, maximum, I don't know, wisdom, intelligence, minimum everything else.
Yeah. Once again, I'm really glad they rebelled and won.
Yeah, good for them.
Yep.
That floor is so clean, though. Like, you can only see a reflection of the Thrall.
Yeah, that's strange. And I bet a Thrall just had to clean that,
Yeah.
though. They get all that kind of work. Okay, so that's all of the commons. Then we have a delightful suite of uncommons and rares. Though I suppose, let's hit on the Thrall Retainer, because it's less clear to me if it actually belongs with the Thrall camp or with the Ebon Hand camp.
Yes.
Another candidate for creepiest art.
Oh, yeah. This is a good one.
Yeah. Oh, this is another thing that I was learning the vocabulary words as like a 12 or 13-year-old. I didn't know the word retainer then. I think I had heard it in relation to braces, like you wear a retainer, and clearly those are things that keep something in place. Okay, this is keeping its intestines in place, but just barely.
just barely.
Yeah, those sagging intestines. This has lived in my mind forever, and it's just
this
it's
is
so creepy.
This is really creepy. So, like, the skin is translucent, and it has some kind of, like, the face with the musculature kind of pulling away. Kind of reminds me of, like, the Colossal Titan from Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
Like, all the exposed musculature and just... The flavor text says, until the rebellion, thralls served their masters faithfully, even at the cost of their own lives.
And so I'm kind of confused about what I'm looking at, because this is horrific enough that it looks like a thrall. But the implication... And like, a thrall is a created being. It's assembled from dead mass, apparently. So it makes sense it would need something to hold it all together, hence a retainer. So that would make sense, but then why do you sacrifice it to regenerate something? It's like, this is the thing keeping it alive. It's not like this thing gets a second skin. It looks like it desperately needed the first skin.
Yeah, it's barely making do with the initial skin.
Yeah. So it's creepy as hell, and I'm not going to begrudge Ron Spencer making a creepy as hell memorable art, but I don't understand it, and I think that's kind of a flavor failure. It just doesn't.
Yeah, I think because like this, if you open this in a pack, like I'm like, oh, this is a creature, and then I have to think about it, and like, no, this is an enchantment that targets a creature. This is not the creature itself.
Yeah.
So what am I actually utilizing here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that pair of Morningstar is so aggressive.
Yeah.
That, I don't know, it almost feels like a red direct damage spell or something.
Right.
This is Skullcrack, This isn't...
Yeah.
Then from the remaining ones, what do you want to look at next?
They're
also cool.
Really want to look at the Thrall Champion. That's one of my favorite cards.
All right, so this, I referenced earlier that, there has been a lot of theming around creature type in this set. And this is the clear one for the Thralls, that you can play as part of the Thralls. It's not like the Ebon Hand cards that want to sacrifice a Thrall to get value. This is a Thrall that helps Thralls.
Yes, all Thralls get 1/1.
Not just the ones you're playing.
Yes,
though that's not going to come up a lot.
Yeah.
Unless you're playing like Fallen Empires block, which we should definitely make.
We should.
Yeah. We're just going to end up playing Thralls against you.
We're going to end up just playing Thralls versus Thralls.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Then our Thrall champions can be exciting.
Yes!
And tap to
take control of target Thrall. You lose control of target Thrall if Thrall champion leaves play, or you lose control of Thrall champion. So if I play another Thrall champion and I take your Thrall champion, then I get my original Thrall back.
You know what this I think this implies we need to create some Dan variant.
I think you're right.
Maybe with a Thrall champion in the command zone or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm into that.
Yeah, we'll think about this. If this already exists and someone's done a good job of it, let us know.
We're gonna investigate this.
Yeah.
Flavor text. Those idiots should never have bred thralls for combat. Jorana
There she is again.
who we know is the insurgent counterinsurgency leader.
She's right.
She's right.
This did not go well for them.
Maybe if we wanted to, oppress and exploit these creatures, we shouldn't have made them really good at combat too.
Yeah.
Maybe that was a mistake. Maybe we shouldn't have given them multiple sets of arms to wield axes and war banners, and all those mouths.
So we talked about abilities kind of like this last episode because we were talking about the Sea Singer.
Yes.
And I asserted, is this the first time that they've had this effect? And we looked, and no, there have been like 8 before that. So it was not the first time they put that kind of ability in, but I think this plays... The fact that it's only to target thralls makes it incredibly flavorful, and it's a representation of the Thrall Rebellion.
Yeah, it's like calling them under its banner, like, hey, you can come
it's
join
literal
us.
banner. It's right there.
Yeah, come join us. You do not have to serve the Ebon Hand.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I love this.
I do too. I'm really fixated on making maybe it's not even a Dan variant. Maybe it's like a pair of dual decks. I don't know. Yeah, it's Ebon Hand versus the Thrall Rebellion.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. Thank you, Ludo. Making contributions.
Good job.
We just have a couple more. Shall we hit this one?
Yeah.
The Thrall Wizard.
This is such a cool one. This is one that sticks in my brain. So this one is illustrated by Anson Maddox. Just wonderfully creepy art. This one counters... You can pay to counter a black spell if the caster of target spell does not pay an additional black or 3 generic.
That is such a weird ability. So weird.
Yeah, just it's really niche.
Yeah, and I think it's explicitly a cool flavor thing because I think what that's saying is, okay, the Thralls start rebelling, and because they've made them too intelligent, as it implies here in the flavor text, they're able to interfere with the core thing the Ebon Hand relies on, which is harnessing black mana to ramp up their clerics.
So in crafting intelligent thralls to assist in sacrifices, Sar inadvertently set the stage for the Thrall Rebellion. So this is the... I think we see this kind of storyline in fiction a lot where, some sort of ruling class creates like, oh, we're gonna make these little helpers. Wouldn't it be cool if they helped with even more? What if we made them a bit smarter and then they could help with even more? And then now they're not so into the idea of being oppressed anymore. And they're actually working against us. And I just love how creepy this thing looks with its super lanky hands.
You have specifically brought this card up out of the blue. I mean, in other episodes, far before we started talking about Fallen Empires specifically.
I was like, hey, what about
I know
Wizards?
this lives rent free in your head.
Yeah, no, this is very
justifiably.
much, and I love the sigil on its head too. Like, I don't know if that's an Ebon Hand thing or something that it's added for itself. But I quite like it.
Absolutely agreed. Let's look at the Daralore.
Okay. That's such an interesting name.
Yeah, this is the last creature for the set. Oh my goodness. What are we gonna do?
I don't
know. The Daralore.
Oh, what a beast.
And it's not legendary, but it's kind of always referred to as the Daralore. At least in strength it has, but at the cost of continuous supply of energy. Such failure can bear only one result. From the execution order of Indrixar, Master Breeder. And I think that's the only time we see this referred to. That is his fate.
So he makes this thing.
Yeah.
Which is a 4/4. Quite strong.
It's a big thrall.
It's a big thrall. But it makes your black spells cost an additional black to cast.
Yep. And so we have this precedent in Magic already of if you want a real big thing, you can do that. You're going to have an absurd upkeep. In Alpha, we had Lord of the Pit, where you have to sacrifice something each turn, or it turns around, starts hitting you. We have Force of Nature, where you have to pour 4 green mana every turn, or the same thing. And so this is in that lineage, right? It's not that big, but it's that kind of thing. Okay, you can get something under rate, not really by today's standards, but certainly at the time.
At the time, yes.
Yeah, because normally Hill Giant is what you get. 3/3 vanilla for 3 and a colored mana. Here you get a whole extra 1/1.
And imagine if you cast your Thrall champion and then cast this guy.
Yeah.
Then you got 5/5.
Then you can start stealing your opponent's Thralls, because they're playing Thralls too.
Probably. If they're smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is another Anson Maddox piece. It's like another kind of centaur monster. Yeah. But it's also kind of chimeric. It's got these obviously different animal parts connected. There's like sort of reptilian, amphibian kind of pieces.
Yeah.
With what looks more like an okapi or like some kind of wild deer monster.
Multiple tails for no particular reason.
Multiple tails for no particular reason. This kind of xenomorph mouth going on.
Is this purple thing here, is this the mane? Or what is that?
don't
Or is
know.
that like its other arm?
I thought it was an arm.
I think it is. I hadn't noticed. I thought I don't know what I thought it was before. I thought it was a mane.
Yeah.
But okay. Wow.
So yeah, apparently Endrixar's fate is that he creates this thing that's really strong but takes too much energy.
Yeah.
And presumably at this point the Thrall Rebellion is probably already happening. I don't know. Maybe this happens before that.
I don't know. That's not made clear.
Yeah. I don't know at what point Endrixar's execution order comes down.
Yeah. I think you could easily make a case for either order.
Yeah.
Either Indrixar has his character arc where he creates all these thralls and then flies too close to the sun for the council's taste, whoever the leaders are who are above him, and they execute him for it, and then things get out of control. But if only they'd kept him alive, he could have helped. Or it can go the other way too.
Yeah.
Like, this is their last-ditch effort to make something to fight against the Thralls that are overwhelming them. But either way, it worked out poorly for him.
Yeah.
And this is kind of unprecedented. I want to look at another printing of this card from 5th edition, because it's the exact same card printed not too much later. This is 1997, so 3 years later, they reprinted the card with different flavor text, but it's from Sarpadian Empires, Volume 2. It's from the same place, but it says, the Darelor's greatest contribution to the Ebon Hand was the inspirational effect its creator's execution had upon the other Thrall breeders.
Interesting.
I'm sure there have been other times when they changed flavor, added new flavor text to further the plot a little bit, but this... it can't happen often, and I don't recall ever having seen it outside of this case.
I mean, what do you mean, like, with the same...
It's the same art. It's a reprint of the same card with the same art.
Giant Spider has quite a few iterations of text.
Yeah, it does, but usually it's like in the Amonkhet one, here's the Giant Spider on Amonkhet.
Yeah. Well, like, if you look up Giant Spider... Yeah, so, like, the first few... are the same, and then they don't start using different ones.
Well, they show up in Portal.
Yeah, that one has a different art, different flavor text.
Here's the first core set variant, but they reused the Portal art with new text. No, they reprinted the Portal version wholesale.
Because, the flavor text matches...
Yeah.
This one, though, when they redid this one in Anthology...
No, but that's the same flavor text. Yeah.
Yeah, those...
So once they changed the art... They changed the art and the flavor text at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm keying in on with the Darelor.
Generally that stays the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I think most of these track with that.
Well, we're seeing... So they stuck with this Randy Gallegos art for quite a while, and they did have a few...
This one has a few variants.
They have a Miri quote, then they have this,
They talk about the forest count, then they have the Garrick Wild speaker, they have another quote. Then we see, like, the Amonkhet version, so there are some variants. But yeah, I get what you mean, where it is kind of unusual.
And the Darelor is just... It's actually a plot point.
Yeah.
Whereas the Giant Spider is... It's an alpha card. It's world building. It's like, hey, this is a magical world where you have giant spiders.
Yes.
And so, But this one, it has such a specific meaning, and it feels like it should have been legendary, because it seems like Indrik Star created this one, and that was such a disaster. Yeah.
Yeah, because everything else we've seen, granted, I think it has mostly been from his perspective, where it's his writings and he's kind of hyping himself up.
Yeah.
But he paints this picture where he's like this wildly successful genius and like bordering on artistry and his necromantic experiments, and then we start getting these outside viewpoints of like, and then here's his execution order, and here's why.
Yep.
I do think it is very interesting that reprint, rather than including some totally new bit of flavor, like regarding necromancy or thralls, kind of expands upon the Ebon Hand story.
Yeah, it's just so close but different. And that's just wild to me. And I guess they've stuck with that. They only printed it in 5th and 6th. Okay, yeah, that's it. Yeah. Okay. So then that brings us to the last
breeding pit.
The last black card, the breeding pit.
So the thralls, I want to read the flavor text on this first before we get into analyzing it. The thralls bred at a terrifying pace. In the end, they overwhelmed the Order of the Ebon Hand.
Yeah.
So again, I imagine this is probably Indrik Sar's doing in like trying to engineer these creatures that like, we're doing a lot of sacrifices. We want to be able to breed them really quickly. It's not going to be useful if it takes forever for them to germinate. We want.
And it seems like at the beginning they probably were stitched together. We see a lot of indication they are individually created, and
now
at some
we've
point,
progressed.
They breed.
Yeah. Yes. So now it's like a self-sustaining situation.
Yeah. Which adds extra levels of creepy, because these are presumably thinking beings that you created, even if you try to make them things that want to sacrifice themselves. But then breeding pit for sentient beings is real unsettling.
Yeah. And this is a pretty unsettling illustration of how we see like this conglomeration of bones slowly move up into these like intestine-like entrails. There's some kind of mucus slime connecting them. And then it turns into this kind of enchanting female form.
Yeah, this is probably my, like, youngest hear me out moment. Because...
I love this. No, this is good.
No, that's the whole thought.
Yeah, no.
I see this when I'm 12 or 13.
Yeah.
I'm like, why am I feeling that way about
it?
But look at that side!
But don't look at that side. Or do, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
No, this is I think this is, it definitely has that effect where you have this like very attractive figure over here, and then you have like the oozing entrails. And
it's a lot of cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
And as cool as it is a super cool magic illustration, but it doesn't really fit within thralls very well, because the other thralls don't look like attractive women.
No, we have not seen any other...
They range from humanoid to not at all humanoid, but they're always creepy and hideous as hell. And we even have flavor text that said they are intentionally...
Yeah, but like that was by design.
To what? Inspire fear and revulsion.
Yeah, we want you to be revolted. This one is not giving that effect.
Yeah.
And it's implied from... I mean, I don't know what's gonna happen here, but it kind of feels like once this transformation is complete, like the end result might not be hideous at all.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe she just crawls out of there and all that stuff comes with her, and like that's the whole,
it's always like that.
Yeah.
No, but it looks like this is transforming into a leg.
Yeah, that's what it feels like,
yeah.
But I could be wrong about that.
Yeah. I think it's purposeful that the upkeep is 2 black and basal thralls sacrifice into 2 black.
Yeah.
It implies that these are kind of a self-sustaining thing. Of course, the tokens that this makes are 0/1s, but I feel like that's a mechanical restriction. They wanted to give you a way to generate a bunch of tokens, but they didn't want you to be able to just like attack and win with these tokens, unless you combine them with some things like the Thrall Champion.
Yeah.
And then, good for you for getting all that together and not running out of mana.
Good job. You've earned it.
Yep. So that's black in Fallen Empires. Super evocative. And I don't know. I think it's tied with me for favorite with green.
Yeah.
Thanks to the Saprolings and Thalids. I really wish Thrulls continued to be a more significant part of the game. We have, an occasional one in Ravnica,
We see them once in a while.
and I guess they're always associated with the Orzhov, which makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Thrall is an invented word, right, for magic, I'm pretty sure.
Is it?
It's related to the word thrall, in thrall, in servitude.
Thrall, okay.
Thrall. But thrall, I'm fairly certain, is... Yeah, it doesn't appear in dictionaries.
The very first result is magic related.
Yeah.
Featuring an Orzhov Thrall.
Yeah. Whereas thrall, the state of being in someone's power or having great power over someone. So
okay.
I'm pretty sure that's the idea there. It's a variant on that. And that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, black is my favorite color in Magic. And there's a lot of creatures in here that I really like. The Thrall Champion is just like one of my favorite critters.
Yeah.
But I think this one has one of the more straightforward conflict stories.
Yeah.
Where it's like, the Ebon Hand created this group of creatures with the intent to exploit them. And
They didn't want that.
they didn't like that.
Yep.
And they rebelled. And they put down, there's a card that explicitly mentions like the murder of the counterinsurgency leader. So it's like, that was pretty much resolved, and looks like the Thralls came out on top of that.
Yep. Everything else is so messy, but this, though it's probably physically very messy.
Oh, I'm sure.
Narratively, it's real clear.
Narratively, pretty straightforward.
Yep. All right. Well, I'm not sure how long that took, but I feel like we're probably on track for another approaching 2 hours, like we have been. So it's good. We've allocated a separate volume. We'd intended to finish this calendar year. We still might.
We might.
But we also
There's
might
a
not get
chance.
to that closing episode until
That's possible.
until the new year, or we might not get it through editing until the new year.
That's more likely. I think it's very likely we will film it, but we may not be done with it.
But I know we'll at least tackle the comics and the novel that followed on. We'll tackle some of the named legendary cards. We've brought up Indrik Sar, but there's also Thelon. There's Turok himself. There might be one other. And talk a little bit about the impact and success that Fallen Empires had in progressing what creature type themes could be.
Yeah.
And there might be some other stuff too, but those are the key points I still really want to discuss and know would take me more than 5 or 10 minutes. So we'll call it a day there.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you for coming to Thrall Talk.
Say something.
You should see how many Pikmin I have now.